The cold beauty is stealing things in the supermarket. But I caught the evidence right on the spot with my phone. Seeing that she was about to run away, I immediately grabbed the bag on her back. Under the school beauty's stunned gaze, I pulled her into an empty corner, then gave a meaningful smile, took out my phone and replayed the video I just took. Classmate, I'm sure you don't want the teachers and friends to find out about this video, right? At this moment, the girl's cheeks turned even redder. Her big, watery eyes silently pleaded with me. I'm not that easily swayed, so I held out my right hand. Hand over everything you took. Or are you waiting for me to search you? Bad luck for you, classmate Chu. My dad owns this supermarket. Xu Wanning looked up at me with teary eyes, then silently unzipped her backpack and took out 3 pieces of bread she had stuffed inside. I couldn't help but curse silently in my heart. You little dummy. Stealing only the cheapest bread. If you're going to steal anyway, why not pick something a bit more expensive? You could have at least stolen a chicken leg or a carton of milk. After taking out all the bread, Xu Wanning opened her backpack wide for me to see, to prove there was nothing else inside. There truly was nothing left, but I had no intention of letting her go that easily. In my previous life, I saw Xu Wanning stealing from the shelves. Since we were classmates, to avoid embarrassing her, I purposely turned a blind eye. As a result, the very next day I heard from my classmates that she had passed away in a traffic accident. Although I don't know the exact time of the accident, I absolutely cannot let Wanning go home right now. I calculated carefully. As long as she can survive safely through today, then it doesn't matter if I have to keep her here overnight. Thinking of that, I dumped all the items from her backpack onto the table. Textbooks, school supplies, a worn-out pencil case, and even a white sanitary pad. Seeing that, Wanning's small face flushed bright red. She immediately rushed forward to snatch back her belongings, quickly stuffing them all back into the backpack. Then she yanked the backpack back with force, but this struggle caused the bag strap to snap. Xu Wanning looked up and glared at me helplessly. The corners of her eyes were slightly red, making that pure face look even more pitiful. I glared back, snatched the broken pack, and tossed it onto the table. You think I'm that easy, fool? You carried a whole backpack in, and only stole 3 of the cheapest pieces of bread, I said as I moved closer to her. Are you still hiding something? Xu Wanning immediately shielded her chest with her hands, hurriedly shaking her head. Looking like a little girl bullied, she took a few steps back. I looked at her and smiled. Unzip it yourself. Don't wait for me to take action. Otherwise, the whole school will know about this tomorrow. Xu Wanning immediately panicked. Say no more, her hands trembled as she reached for her collar, slowly pulling the zipper down. Her slender, fair neck was revealed. I saw it, because it had been washed too many times. The collar of the t-shirt was worn and wrinkled, along with her delicate collarbones glimpsed under the collar. But as the zipper went down, the bulge inside finally came into view. Xu Wanning's eyes were red. She spoke softly. Do you see clearly now? In not hiding anything. I leaned in closer to observe more, smelling the scent of body wash mixed with a faint aroma of laundry detergent. I questioned her again. Isn't there still another layer of clothing? Xu Wanning bit her pink lips. Hearing that, I didn't make any more unreasonable demands, just tilted my head slightly forward and gently lifted her collar. Nothing hidden in the sleeves. Xu Wanning shook her head. She said there wasn't. I gave a cold laugh. It's not that there's nothing just because you say so. I have to check for myself to know for sure. With that, I leaned my head close to her left armpit. Xu Wanning's face flushed with shame and anger, and she turned away. In addition to the scent of body wash and laundry detergent, I also smelled the gentle body fragrance characteristic of a young girl. I pretended to check the other sleeve as well. Xu Wanning turned her head the other way in annoyance again. At this moment, I suddenly noticed a small detail. If a girl is being searched by the opposite sex at such close range, her eyes should be full of coldness and disgust. But in Xu Wanning's eyes, there seemed to be only shyness and irritation. In a moment, I suddenly realized. Actually, Xu Wanning didn't hate me at all. Maybe she even had a bit of a crush on me. This also explained why Xu Wanning voted for me. However, in my memory, I couldn't recall any intersection between us. Was I really that foolish during my youth? Thinking back to that time, I really have a headache. At that time, I only had Song Sinyao in my heart, always pathetically pursuing her. Just one hot and cold move from her was enough to keep me awake all night. Looking back now, I was truly stupid back then. Now I took 2 steps back, my gaze shifting downward. Nothing hidden in your pants? Xu Wanning immediately and obediently turned her pockets inside out, to prove to me that there was nothing. But I didn't actually bother looking. I just peeked at the wall clock. Only a few minutes had passed. The car causing the accident probably hadn't even reached the intersection yet. I had to continue finding excuses to cause trouble. What does turning your pockets out prove? Let me check. After saying that, I leaned down slightly, intending to touch the leg of her school uniform. Those long legs couldn't hide anything either. Shu Wanning backed away anxiously, her breathing becoming rapid due to tension. I had anticipated she would react this way, so I proactively took a step back. Differences between men and women, it really is inconvenient. Let's do this. Jump in place a few times, so I can see if anything falls out. Hearing this, Shu Wanning took a deep breath. After all, stealing is wrong. She had no reason to argue. She slightly raised her arms, as if gaining momentum, then hopped once in place. I intended to make a show of it, looking at the ground for anything, but my automatic gaze forgot to turn off. I instinctively looked back up. Both my eyes and head moved up and down with her. Luckily, she was focused on looking down, so she didn't notice my gaze. Shu Wanning was about to jump again. I hurried to stop her. All right. That's enough. I'm not tricking you. I only took 3 loaves of bread, now that I've returned them to you. Can I leave now? Shu Wanning's questioning voice was starting to choke up. I also couldn't think of a reason to keep her here for the moment. Seeing no reaction from me, Shu Wanning immediately went to the table, gathered all her belongings that had been dumped out, and put them all back into the backpack. Once packed, seeing she was about to leave, I called out, "Wait." Shu Wanning turned around, clutching the backpack to her chest, her big watery eyes looking at me with full vigilance.
I couldn't help asking.
Are you that hungry? Shu Wanning lowered her head and didn't answer. I didn't say anything more, turned around, tore open a bread package, and handed it to her. Eat it before you go. Shu Wanning didn't look up, nor did she reach out to take it, just stood still as if she were being punished, standing rooted to the spot. That thin figure looked as if a gust of wind could blow her over. Seeing this, I continued, I've already torn it open. It can't be sold anymore. Saying that, I firmly pressed the bread into her hand. A few seconds later, Shu Wanning set down her backpack, slowly brought the bread to her mouth, and took small bites. Then she ate faster and faster. Seeing that, I gave a satisfied smile. But suddenly, 2 lines of tears rolled down Shu Wanning's cheeks. From being caught red-handed to being searched, she had remained strong without shedding a single tear. It wasn't until the bread touched her tongue that she finally couldn't hold it back anymore. I silently watched her, then turned to tear open another piece and stuffed it into her other hand. Then I fumbled in my pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. Realizing it was the tissue I used to blow my nose, I threw it on the ground in disgust. God, my 17-year-old self doesn't carry a watch? I didn't understand what happened to Shu Wanning's family, to the point that a top student with good character like her had to steal bread from a supermarket to eat. After finishing the second one, Shu Wanning looked at the third loaf. Without waiting for me to turn around, she immediately stepped forward, tore open the wrapper herself and devoured it. While eating, she opened her backpack, taking out paper and a pen from inside. Then she scribbled a few lines on the paper. Once finished, she also just finished her bread. Shu Wanning quickly wiped away her tears with her sleeve and with a serious face handed the paper to me with both hands. I took the scrap of paper, staring blankly at the words written on it. August 30th, 2015. Shu Wanning owes Gu Xiao's 3 loaves of bread. In that moment, I was silenced for a long time, speechless. This handwriting was identical to the ballot in my memory. At this point, I finally understood. The one who silently supported me for sports rep last term was actually her, and not Song Xinyao. Back then, I always thought it was that green tea girl's doing. Because of that, I felt even more excited. Since my family owns the supermarket, I had let that green tea girl benefit for free so many times. Luckily, I was reborn in this life. I looked at Shu Wanning, then casually tossed the IOU aside. You think just writing an IOU can end today's matter? Shu Wanning silently picked up the IOU from the ground, having prepared herself for the worst. After taking a deep breath, she looked at me and asked, How do you want to settle this? I waved my hand, then immediately opened the supermarket's storage door. Follow me first. I accidentally broke your backpack just now, so let me replace it for you. Shu Wanning was stunned for a moment, then repeatedly shook her head. It's not necessary. That tear can be sewn back. I waved her off. Just listen to me on this. I don't like owing anyone anything. With that, I led Shu Wanning to the backpack section. Shu Wanning's eyes immediately stopped on a pink backpack. She looked like she really liked it. I immediately took it down and pushed it into her arms. This is for you. Shu Wanning blanked out for a few seconds, then hurriedly spoke up. I won't take it, my backpack. was already old and broken anyway. She stubbornly put the backpack back in its place. I frowned at her. If you want the whole school to know about today's matter, then go ahead and leave it there. Chu Wanning's small hand suddenly froze. Then, she silently took the backpack down. Next, she took out the IOU from earlier and added a backpack to it. When she looked back at the price tag of the backpack, her expression suddenly became a few degrees more bitter. It seemed she felt unable to afford the repayment. I noticed the change in her expression, couldn't help but laugh. Since you've already written an IOU, follow me a bit further. Chu Wanning sadly lowered her head and silently followed behind me. I stopped in front of the stationery section, putting a pink pencil case into her hand. Chu Wanning turned to look at the price, then firmly refused. I'm not taking it. I threatened her again. If you don't want today's matter. Chu Wanning interrupted me, both ashamed and angry, even instinctively stamping her foot. I don't have that much money to pay you back. I folded my arms and raised an eyebrow at her. I don't intend to make you pay back with money anyway. Or you can think of another way to repay me. Chu Wanning slightly lowered her head, not knowing what she was associating it with. Seeing me smiling and staring at her, she hurriedly looked away, but her flushed face betrayed her. Afterward, I continued to lead Chu Wanning around the supermarket. But when we reached a certain area, Chu Wanning was so embarrassed she turned to leave. Stop. I loudly called for her to stop. Do you want today's story to spread all the way to school? I'm a problem student. You must know that problem students dare to do anything. Only then did Chu Wanning slowly turn back, her entire small face flushed deep red. I don't need sanitary pads. I looked at her with a knowing smile. You don't. Let me try to do the math. You have one in your bag and you're wearing one. Doesn't that mean you only have two left? Chu Wanning was so angry she clenched her small fists, looking both furious and adorable, but she couldn't find any words to talk back. I grabbed a pack of sanitary pads from the shelf, tossed it straight at her. The girl hurriedly stood on her tiptoes and reached out to catch it. After adding the missing item to the IOU, she secretly brought the pack of pads to her nose to smell it. A bit of surprise and shock appeared in her eyes. So this kind actually has a fragrance. Before, she only used the cheap retail ones, which had no scent at all, and sometimes even had small insect remains inside, which had to be picked out one by one. I led her away, heading toward the main entrance of the supermarket. I looked at her seriously, giving careful instructions. Be careful on the way. You must watch out for traffic. Get home safely. Go to school as usual tomorrow. As long as you're obedient and listen, then today's matter will be as if it never happened. Got it? Chu Wanning didn't understand why I said those things, but she still gave a small nod. Then, she solemnly handed the IOU to me with both hands. This IOU will always be valid. I nodded in agreement. Just then, Song Xinyao and her two best friends walked over. I couldn't help but chuckle in my heart. Since all parties involved in the sports rep election mix-up were present, then today this matter should be settled once and for all. I immediately called Chu Wanning back. Classmate Chu, wait a moment. Don't leave just yet. I just wanted to keep Chu Wanning here to watch the good drama about to unfold. Back then, the relationship between Song Xinyao and me was ambiguous, neither confirmed nor denied. She accepted every gift I gave her without missing a thing, but when we were together, she always kept her distance. She said the time before graduation was considered an observation phase, for me to prove myself. While my father was busy stocking the supermarket, I was preoccupied with supplying items to Song Xinyao. My lovesick behavior back then made even my middle school sister despise me immensely. But it wasn't until after graduation that I found out Song Xinyao had actually been secretly dating a senior for a year. Ever since I learned that news, my heart turned completely cold like ashes. So I began to strive with all my might, until finally, in my 30s, I owned a fortune worth hundreds of millions of yuan. By then, Song Xinyao had been abandoned by her ex-husband, struggling alone to raise her child. Later, I also helped her out quite a bit. It's only now that I realize all these years, I've done so many ridiculous things for this woman. At this moment, Song Xinyao's voice interrupted my thoughts. Not bad, huh? So Gu Xiao's can actually talk to Chu Wanning now. So do you think Chu Wanning is prettier or am I? Song Xinyao leaned her hands on the checkout counter, her words full of sarcasm and a hint of jealousy. Sitting at the cashier station, I coldly replied, she just came to buy things, classmate Song. Do you want to buy anything today? The girl standing next to her covered her mouth, exclaiming in surprise, "Yao Yao, does your friend's family really own a supermarket? This supermarket is huge." Song Xinyao looked a bit smug, waving her hand generously. "That's right. You guys just look around, take whatever you like. Go ahead and take it. It's all on me today." The other two girls showed clear faces of admiration, and without any hesitation, began picking items around the supermarket. Not long after, the two girls happily hugged a pile of chips, candies, and then came back. All the items were placed on the checkout counter. It seemed they really came here for a free buffet. Song Xinyao also habitually took a few more bottles of soda, looked at me, and said sweetly, "Xiaoze, get us 2 large bags." I nodded slightly, then started picking up each item to scan the barcode. Song Xinyao was suddenly stunned, unable to keep from asking, What are you doing?" I calmly replied in a serious tone, "Scanning the prices, obviously. Didn't you guys come here to buy things?" Hearing this, the two girls standing behind her silently looked at each other, whispering to each other. "Didn't Yao Yao say we didn't have to pay?" Hearing her friends whispering, Song Xinyao felt extremely humiliated. "Gu Xiaoze, why are you being so stingy today? It's just some food. It's not that expensive." Hearing that, I laughed. "Right, it's not expensive. You said it was on you. Surely you can afford it." Song Xinyao was immediately speechless. Standing beside us, Chu Wanning blinked her eyelashes, deeply astonished witnessing this scene. Actually, in class, my lovesick actions, she had already been silently observing them all. Suddenly, Song Xinyao angrily slammed her hand down on the counter. "Gu Xiaozi, don't tell me that. You're being serious. I'm really angry now." I looked at her with a bit of surprise. "Look at you, getting all worked up. So what if you're angry? Planning to commit robbery in broad daylight?" Song Xinyao's face suddenly stiffened as a possibility occurred to her, so she probed. "Could it be? Did you see me yesterday? Shopping with the class president at the mall? Why are you being so narrow-minded? The class president and I just bumped into each other." I waved my hand and replied, "I stayed home and slept all day yesterday. I didn't go to any mall." Song Xinyao became even more furious. "Then what is wrong with you today?" I gave a cold laugh. "I think I'm perfectly normal. If you buy things, you have to pay. Isn't that only natural?" Having said that, I turned to look at Chu Wanning standing nearby. "Classmate Chu, don't you think I'm right?" Hearing this, Chu Wanning turned her face away, ignoring me completely. Song Xinyao's two best friends started to feel uneasy. "Whatever, let's just leave it. Yao Yao, we don't really crave it that much anyway." "Exactly, Yao Yao. It's not worth it. It's not worth getting angry over this." Song Xinyao still wouldn't let it go, playing her final card. "Gu Xiaoze, let me tell you, the class president confessed his feelings to me yesterday." After saying that, she gave a light huff, lifting her fair chin arrogantly, adding, "That's right, at that very mall yesterday." Hearing those words, I laughed even more radiantly. "Let me guess, you haven't agreed yet. But you didn't exactly reject him either, did you? You probably intended to say that for now, studies should come first, and whatever happens can wait until after graduation, right?" Song Xinyao's image immediately crumbled. "Gu Xiaoze, what do you mean by that?" I waved my hands. "I don't mean anything. The point is, are you buying or not? If not, put it back." Seeing her two friends about to step forward to take the items. But Song Xinyao immediately blocked the two of them. "Wait a second. What happened today isn't about whether you paid or not. It's about his attitude. Gu Xiaoze, is this how you choose to like me? Do you believe me? Tomorrow I'll accept the class president's confession just to show you." I immediately started clapping and cheering. "Then I wish you a happy confession." Chu Wanning standing nearby couldn't help but want to burst out laughing. But after seeing me look her way, she quickly turned her face away. Her eyes flickered with a hint of panic. At this moment, Song Xinyao screamed in anger again. "You definitely went to the mall yesterday. Gu Xiaoze, you're going to regret this." Having said that, Song Xinyao pulled her two friends and prepared to leave the supermarket. Suddenly, my voice rang out from behind. "Stop!" Song Xinyao smirked slightly. She turned around. "What's wrong? Regretting it already?" I slammed my hand down on the checkout counter, making the three girls jump in surprise. "Regret my foot. Whatever you took, put it back where it belongs right now." Song Xinyao's jaw dropped. She stood there in a daze. Her hands were trembling. Her eyes naturally turned red. "Gu Xiaoze, you..." Her two friends had long heard of my devilish reputation at school, so they rushed over, putting all the items back in their original places. Once done, they hurriedly went to Song Xinyao's side and said, "Let's go." Yao Yao. Song Xinyao was dragged out of the supermarket. Before leaving, tears welled up in her eyes. Her gaze was filled with grievance. She glared at me furiously. After finishing, I felt much more at ease. Chu Wanning hugged her backpack and walked back inside. "Did you want to say something to me?" I didn't say anything. I walked around the checkout counter. Then I stepped in front of her. I took out a pink hairpin from my hand, gently clipping it onto her stray lock of hair. Chu Wanning hurriedly took the hairpin down. "I'm not taking it." I pushed her hand back. "This is a thank you gift. During the physical education vice monitor election last year. Thank you for casting a vote for me." Chu Wanning looked incredibly surprised. Her slender fingers tightly gripped the pink hairpin. Within those beautiful eyes, her gaze began to avoid mine. A few seconds later, Chu Wanning immediately stuffed the hairpin back into my hand. Then she turned and ran away as if trying to escape. I quickly shouted after her, "Take it slow on the road. How dare you run on the main road like that while walking? I'll report you to the school tomorrow." I chased after her for a few steps with the hairpin. Chu Wanning didn't look back, but she obediently slowed down, switching from a run to a walk. I guess I finally understand. Regardless of whether the threat is believable, just threatening to report the shoplifting. This threat definitely works perfectly on her. Maybe next time I'll use this trick to tease her more. Thinking of this, I mentally slapped myself. I looked at the hairpin in my hand. If you voted for me, just admit it. What's there to be so shy about? Is voting for me really that embarrassing? Or is she just flustered? Early the next morning, I woke up late. I bought 2 portions of breakfast. Then I immediately pedaled my bike towards school. Lingshan No. 3 High School. Rushing to the classroom door, I was huffing and puffing. The first thing I did wasn't look at the homeroom teacher. Nor did I bother looking at Song Xinyao. Instead, I looked toward Chu Wanning. Right now, she was moving desks and chairs with the other students, hearing the noise at the door. She also looked over along with everyone else. But very quickly, Chu Wanning's ears turned bright red. She turned her face away. I was so happy. She had safely appeared in this 12th grade class. The excitement in me couldn't be suppressed. I didn't notice that on the other side, the way Song Xinyao was looking at me was full of resentment. At that moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the podium. I jumped in startle, hurriedly looking over. Director Qin Gui was glaring at me furiously. "Gu Xiaojia, late on the first day of school. Settle the seating first. Once it's all arranged, I'll deal with you later." I shrugged nonchalantly. Together with over 50 students, I walked out into the hallway. Every time a new semester starts, the first thing is arranging seats based on the previous final exam results. Good students sit in front. Bad students sit in the back. If nothing changed, I'd have to sit at the very last desk again. Suddenly, I remembered something. At the end of last semester, I wasn't the one at the bottom of the class. The one at the bottom was Chu Wanning. The reason was simple. She hadn't shown up for the final exams. I couldn't help but chuckle. Suddenly, I heard my best friend Li Yu standing in front, speaking with a meaningful tone. "Gu Xiaozi, you're in luck this time. Looks like Chu Wanning will have to sit in the corner of the class with you," the director said with a bit of pity. "Wanning, if you can't see the board clearly from the back, just let me know. I'll move you to the front." I immediately disagreed. "I don't agree." The director glared at me with burning eyes. "You don't agree? Who do you think you are? I'm warning you, don't disturb Wanning's studying during class. If I catch you." Hearing that, Chu Wanning quickly looked up and said, "Teacher, there's no need. When the monthly exam comes, I'll earn my rank back." Exactly. Hearing that, Qin Gui's expression changed, blooming into a bright smile. All right. Wanning, as long as you don't lose heart, it's fine. If this Gu Xiao's tries to bully you, just tell me." Chu Wanning gave a soft yes. I thick-skinnedly asked, "What kind of bullying counts as bullying?" Saying that, I reached out and poked Chu Wanning's soft arm, asking her, "Does this count as bullying?" Chu Wanning's ear on that side flushed red. She shrank back slightly to the side. Then she suddenly frowned and sniffed the air slightly. Seeing this, I asked, "Do you smell smelly feet?" Welcome to the world of the troublemakers in the back row. Seeing Chu Wanning's bewildered look, I pointed and explained, "Those twins over there are Zhang Nang and Zhang Xing, known in the streets as the biochemical brothers, if they take off their shoes. This whole number 3 high school would probably explode from the smell. Chu Wanning pursed her lips and smiled softly. That smile left me completely dazed. So you actually know how to smile. Chu Wanning quickly pulled back her smile. Her face gradually returned to its previous elegant, cold look. I continue the introductions. Look over there. Chu Wanning obediently looked up in the direction my finger pointed. I continued. The guy to the right of the twins is Zhang Feng. As soon as the bell rings, he falls asleep immediately. You couldn't wake him up even if you slapped him. His drool is so much he could draw a map on the desk. Guess what god title he has? Chu Wanning didn't intend to answer at first, but she still softly replied, Sleep God. I smiled and nodded. Spot on. The girl's eyes curved slightly for a moment. It seemed she was happy to be on the same wavelength as me. I continued. He's farsighted. So he asked the teacher to let him sit in the back. His nickname is Gun God. Waiting for a while, before I could explain, Chu Wanning looked over. Her beautiful eyes quietly stared at me. What does Gun God mean? My smile became incredibly strange. I can't really explain that one to you in detail. Study God, now officially welcome to the Back Row Club. Guess what I am?
What god?
I don't want to guess. Having said that, Chu Wanning emotionlessly flipped open her English book, looking as if she absolutely wouldn't pay me any more attention. I urged, just guess. Chu Wanning's lips pursed slightly, still ignoring me. Her face was turned the other way, seemingly very focused on the textbook. I rested my head on my arm, speaking lazily. If you don't guess, then I'll tell everyone all your secrets. Chu Wanning immediately turned her head back. Her breathing was a bit hurried, glaring at me with a mix of shyness and anger. She had no choice but to obediently ask, What god are you? Her clear voice carried a hint of grievance from being forced. I replied with a smile, Love God. Chu Wanning frowned and let out an angry huff. Boring. Then she turned her head away once more. I smiled, resting my head on one hand. I just leisurely and flagrantly observed Chu Wanning. I don't know why, but after saving this girl, I feel like I'm the one who gave birth to her. Like I'm watching a daughter I worked hard to raise grow up. 2.5 minutes later, Chu Wanning couldn't take it anymore. She turned her head, looking at me with both shyness and anger. What are you looking at? I pretended to be confused and asked. Nothing. I was just wondering why your mouth is so small. Chu Wanning tried her best to purse her small lips, trying not to let me see them anymore. Then she turned her face away again.
As for me, I withdrew my gaze.
I took out a bag of steaming hot meat buns from my backpack, handing them over to her, speaking in a commanding tone. Deal with these during the break. I'm not taking them. Hearing Chu Wanning's cold refusal, I immediately widened my eyes. You dare say you're not taking them? Believe me, ill. The little girl immediately and obediently took the bag of buns. Her beautiful eyes gave me a resentful glare. Only then did I act like an elder and praised her. Well, that's more like it. As long as you listen, it's fine. The homeroom teacher slammed the podium again. You're in 12th grade now. I hope you all understand what your goals are. Is it to keep wasting your days away? Or do you plan to risk it all for a breakthrough? If you still won't study properly this year, like a certain someone, not doing homework, talking in class, grades at the bottom, even affecting other students, then prepare to taste bitterness in the future. I leaned back, slightly smirking. In my past life, I already tasted what it was like to hold hundreds of millions. In this life, I want to see what it's like to go to university. However, with my current academic level, getting into college is a bit tough. But having study god Chu Wanning by my side makes me feel strangely confident. Many times I'm actually curious if this guy Li Yu secretly studies at night. We clearly play around together. But why are his scores always so high? Comparing yourself to others really is infuriating. I let out a sigh, then slapped my thigh. Chu Wanning jumped in fright, hurriedly pulling her 2 long legs together. I immediately apologized. My bad. I slapped the wrong one. The first period is English. Everyone, get your textbooks ready. Director Chin Gui ordered, even though she's a literature teacher. After a few more words of lecturing, she looked toward the window corner with some unease, then pointed her finger at me. Her fierce gaze was a silent threat. Only then did she leave the class. Meanwhile, the English teacher, holding her lesson plans and textbooks, had been waiting at the door for a while.
After nodding and smiling at Qingwei,
she walked into the classroom. Her charming long legs and black stockings caught everyone's eyes. The bell for class rang. A thud sounded from the right. Zhang Feng had already slumped onto his desk, falling into a deep sleep instantly. I also took out my English book, telling myself I must study seriously this time. Shu Wenning turned to look at me with a look of strangeness. She didn't say anything, because the boys in class are indeed very silly sometimes, like me. She often sees me walking, and suddenly, like I've short-circuited, I'll jump in place, then perform a basketball shooting motion. Every time that happens, Shu Wenning will stop, looking at me with a blank expression.
To avoid being caught looking by me,
she'll immediately lower her head and brush past me. From that, she discovered I'm a very peculiar person. Even if a piece of paper or an empty bottle isn't nearby, I'll insist on picking it up, to throw it in a perfect parabola into the trash can. Once I spent the whole break throwing and still missing. Shu Wenning, sitting in class, turned her head and used those beautiful eyes to watch the busy boy in the hallway in a daze. Mesmerized, she watched for the entire break, seeing me still pinning down my right arm. Shu Wenning couldn't take it anymore. "What are you doing to make both joined desks shake like that?" I said solemnly. "There's a demon inside my right hand. It's about to break the seal now."
can classmate Shu Wenning help me pin it down?
There was no reaction from beside me. I turned my head and found Shu Wenning was looking at me like I was mentally challenged. "What's with that? Can't you have a bit of a youthful soul?" "Childish." Shu Wenning softly scolded. Then she turned her face away, simultaneously drawing a huge boundary line between the two desks. I was about to talk to her more, when I suddenly heard English teacher Shen Qingqing call my name. "Gu Xiaoze, please stand up. Read the first paragraph of the text for the class." I stood up, flipped open the brand new textbook, then leisurely read the first part very naturally. When the first word came out of my mouth,
Shen Qingqing's gaze immediately changed.
she looked up at me in surprise. The whole class turned their heads to look. Shu Wenning was also incredibly shocked. She stared at me in a daze. The pronunciation is so perfect, and it's even a British accent. What happened to this guy? Shen Qingqing was utterly stunned. "Gu Xiaoze, what did you do over the past holiday? Did you go abroad? But even if you did, your pronunciation shouldn't be this good." I answered seriously. "Of course, I worked hard and studied diligently. My goal is to get into university after all." Hearing this, in the eyes of Shu Wenning sitting next to me, a hint of surprise and joy flickered. Liu, sitting in the corner, suddenly burst out laughing.
Working hard? How do you plan to work hard? Shu Wenning quietly gave him a glare. But Liu's words made the whole class erupt in laughter. Only Song Xinyao couldn't laugh, because she absolutely didn't want me to work hard for anything else. Shen Qingqing walked over to me. She patted my shoulder. "Very good. That you have such a mindset makes me very happy. I believe in you." I proudly turned to look at Shu Wenning. She withdrew her gaze. Her face remained cold without any response. I sat down, smiling brightly, and slapped my thigh. Shu Wenning once again jumped and pulled her legs back. She glared at me angrily. "If you dare slap my leg again, I'll report you to the homeroom teacher." I hurriedly explained. "I really slapped the wrong one. I intended to slap my own thigh." Shu Wenning ignored me. I nudged her arm slightly and said, "I'll teach you pronunciation practice later, and you help tutor me in other subjects. How about it?" Shu Wenning turned her head to answer. Suddenly, her expression froze. Then she quickly withdrew her gaze, looking down at the desk. "What's wrong?" I turned my head to look back, only to see a face at the window in front, quietly looking inside. That gaze happened to stop right at my spot. The homeroom teacher appeared there like a ghost, scaring me so much my shoulders shook. Instinctively, I sat up straight. I've lived this many years, yet I still can't escape this bone-deep fear. After the homeroom teacher left, I saw a small piece of paper slowly appear in my field of vision. Shu Wenning had written the word "okay" in sharp yet elegant handwriting. Seeing her agree, I felt an extraordinary joy in my heart. Maybe if I give it my all this year, I really can get into a prestigious university. I focused on the textbook, sitting up straight, starting to try and listen to the lecture. 5 minutes later, I had worked hard and slumped onto the desk, falling asleep. At that moment, the curtain was blown open by the wind. Harsh sunlight shone directly onto my sleeping face. A slender hand reached up, pulling the curtain closed. Seeing that the shade completely covered the sunlight on my face, only then did she feel relief and lowered her head, continuing to take notes in her notebook attentively. Not long after, Shen Qingqing's voice suddenly sounded closer. Shu Wenning looked up and saw the English teacher holding a book, slowly walking down the aisle between the rows of desks. Shu Wenning looked at me worriedly. She quickly reached out and slapped my arm hard. I hurriedly sat up, hand gripping the ballpoint pen tightly.
pretending to be focused on the book. Xu Wanning thoughtfully reached her small hand over, helping me flip to the next page, flinking exactly to the exercise section after the lesson. Just then, Shen Qingqing walked past. She only gave a slight glance, then kept walking. Xu Wanning breathed a sigh of relief. As for me, I immediately slumped my head down once more, continuing my deep sleep, hearing the sound of Shen Qingqing hitting Zheng Feng's face with a book on the other side. Seeing the marks on one side of my face, Xu Wanning smiled slightly. She felt very happy. Or she could only watch me from afar, seeing me sleep in class and get scolded. Even if she wanted to remind me, she couldn't reach me. But today, she managed to remind me once, helping me escape the teacher's sights spectacularly. Xu Wanning's sense of satisfaction and achievement came in a very strange way. She turned back to continue her exercises. A light breeze from outside the window drifted into the classroom, blowing the girl's stray hairs down. Right at this moment, a pink hairpin was pushed to her desk. Xu Wanning looked up. Her gaze was dazed. She looked toward me, but I had changed my sleeping position, turning my face to the other side. Xu Wanning pursed her small lips slightly, looking at the hairpin once again. This hairpin really was beautiful. After a struggle in her thoughts, she reached out and picked it up, then tucked her unruly lock of hair up high, using the hairpin to clip it back. Unable to see her own appearance right now, she turned her head to stare at the reflection in the window. After tucking her hair up, her exquisite face was more clearly revealed. The perfect oval facial features also became distinct. She reached out and took the hairpin down again, using a piece of paper to gently wrap it, then putting it into a small compartment in her backpack. Soon, the bell for the end of class finally rang. I stretched my arms, then turned to look at Xu Wanning. Didn't see the hairpin on her head. It wasn't on the desk either, meaning she had put it away. I tapped my finger on her desk, reminding her, "Eat up." Xu Wanning took out the still warm bag of buns, handing it over to me with both hands, slightly shaking her head and saying, "I'm not hungry." She really liked using both hands when handing things over, and I also really liked watching her do that. It felt like a different kind of cuteness. "Then tell me, have you eaten anything this morning?" The little girl explained coldly. "I don't have the habit of eating breakfast." I started to speak impatiently. I said, "Eat it now. Don't make me get angry." Xu Wanning glanced at me. She had no choice but to lower her head and open the plastic bag, holding the bun through the bag and bringing it to her mouth, starting to take small bites. After eating down to the meat filling inside, her eyes suddenly lit up. The next bite was much bigger. She finished one in just a few bites, seeming to realize her eating manner was a bit unrefined. Xu Wanning looked up and gave me a shy glance. Her earlobes couldn't help but turn red. She turned away, no longer facing me, and I watched this scene with a face full of satisfaction. If this isn't like raising a daughter, then what is? After finishing the second one, there were still 2 buns left in the plastic bag. Xu Wanning took a quick look. Hesitating for 2 seconds, she quietly tied the plastic bag. Then she timidly explained to me, "I'm full. I'll save the rest for lunch." I slammed my hand on the table, startling Xu Wanning, making her arms tremble. My voice became stern. "I told you to eat, so eat. Don't fuss with me." Xu Wanning glared at me with a cold, captivating gaze. I stepped closer and pointed at her. "You still dare to glare at me? Go ahead, glare some more. Do you believe ill?" Xu Wanning hurriedly opened the plastic bag, obediently putting the 3rd bun into her small mouth. But her eating speed had slowed down significantly. Seeing her being obedient, I nodded with satisfaction. "That's secret about shoplifting. I'll use it to tease you for a lifetime." Just then, Song Xinyao walked over. "Gu Xiaozi, come out here. I have something to say to you." When I turned around and saw her, Song Xinyao asked, "What are you doing?" Song Xinyao turned and walked away. As she reached the classroom door, thinking I would follow behind. But when she realized no one was behind her, she shouted at me angrily. "Gu Xiaozi, you're becoming more and more outrageous." The shout caught the attention of many in the class. Every curious ear perked up to eavesdrop. I looked at Song Xinyao at the door impatiently. "What did I do?" "Just say what you have to say right here. It's just that I'm too lazy to walk over." Song Xinyao had no choice but to come back. She stood beside my desk, in front of so many people. It wasn't convenient for her to speak loudly. She could only say through gritted teeth, "That's enough from you." About me saying it except Wang Minghua's confession. It was just a joke to scare you. I don't like him. I burst out laughing immediately. "Then do you like me?" Song Xinyao's face flushed red. She hurriedly spoke. I've already said, we're still young, we shouldn't be dating yet. Wait until graduation. Just then, Chu Wanning coldly reminded, the teacher is here. Song Shinyo turned around and sure enough saw it. The homeroom teacher, Kin Gui, was walking in with lesson plans. He was always like that, often coming to class early. Song Shinyo stomped her foot in frustration. She had to return to her seat. Time passed until the lunch break. Students in the class either went home or went down to the cafeteria. All morning, Song Shinyo couldn't find a chance to talk to me. Now seeing the opportunity, she ran over again. Gu Xiaozi, go eat at the cafeteria with me. I shook my head and declined. I have to study. Song Shinyo couldn't do anything about me. In the end, she let her friends pull her away. Gradually, only Chu Wanning and I were left in the class. I really wanted to see what this girl sitting next to me was doing. Every time, she goes to the cafeteria so late. What on earth does she eat? Or does she not eat at all? Chu Wanning sat very quietly at her desk, focused on the homework the teacher assigned this morning. It seems she didn't realize at all that only the two of us were left in the classroom. I said I had to strive to study, so I couldn't just sit there watching. Just look at other reincarnated people. If they're not sent back to right after high school graduation, they're sent all the way back to kindergarten. But I was reincarnated into the most hellish period of a student's life, right at the start of the senior year. If I've been given 2 lives and still don't make it into university, that would be a total waste. No way. This time I must study properly. After all, there's still a whole year left. I immediately took out my textbooks, starting to read every word, every sentence from the very beginning. 5 minutes later, my steady snoring echoed throughout the classroom. Chu Wanning turned her head to look. Seeing that I was sleeping soundly, not knowing what I was dreaming about, but I raised my hand to scratch my nose. Immediately after, I even cracked a smile. Chu Wanning watched, looking a bit dazed, until she saw my drool about to drip onto the desk. She suddenly snapped out of it. She hurriedly took a tissue out of her pocket. After folding it in half, she cautiously moved it closer to the corner of my mouth. After she finished placing the tissue, Chu Wanning's hand didn't immediately pull back. She had a secret that no one knew. That was, she had known me since middle school. In her mind, there were so many memories of me, but she also understood clearly. I didn't remember a thing. Perhaps I never even cared. But that's okay. She still remembered. Thinking of this, Chu Wanning couldn't help but raise her slender finger, gently touching the tip of my nose, seeing my snoring suddenly stop. She was startled and quickly pulled her hand back, sitting up straight, her heart pounding incessantly. Very quickly, waiting until my snoring started again. Only then did Chu Wanning dare to breathe a sigh of relief. Sitting quietly for a while longer, she got up softly. This was her fixed lunchtime. When entering the cafeteria, other students had finished eating long ago. The cafeteria was now extremely empty. The cleaning ladies had already started tidying up. The short-haired lady serving rice spoke enthusiastically as soon as she saw Chu Wanning. "It's you again? Little girl, I've told you how many times. You have to come earlier next time. At this hour, all the food is completely gone. Only the broth is left." Chu Wanning gave an awkward smile. "It's all right. I'll just eat plain rice." The long-haired lady next to her recognized Chu Wanning. She reminded the other lady that she's a top student, don't you know? Coming this late, it's definitely because she was busy studying. The short-haired lady let out a sound and looked at Chu Wanning with admiration. Look at her. She looks as beautiful as a fairy from heaven. And her grades are good too. I'd be so happy if my son was even half as good as her. Let me give you a bit more rice and pour some gravy on it for you. After finishing serving the rice, the short-haired lady added, "It's okay, I'll just charge you 50 cents. Chu Wanning softly said thank you, after swiping her meal card. Chu Wanning realized there was exactly 5.5 yuan left. 50 cents for a meal was actually a luxury for her. But if she didn't eat, she wouldn't have the energy to study. Chu Wanning carried the tray of plain rice, found a spot in a hidden corner, and sat down. She ate slowly, not leaving a single grain of rice behind. Elsewhere, in the classroom, my body suddenly jolted. Then I gave a long stretch. Only then did I realize I had been asleep for nearly half an hour. I immediately got up and dashed down to the cafeteria. By now, even the ladies in the cafeteria were cleaning the trays. I hurriedly ran over and shouted, "Don't clean it up yet. There's still someone else." The short-haired lady looked puzzled. "Were you also busy studying?" I spoke up shamelessly. "Something like that." "Auntie, was there a very beautiful girl earlier?" who just came here to eat. The short-haired lady nodded. That's right. That girl always studies until very late. Every time she comes, only plain rice is left. I followed suit and swiped 2 yuan for rice. Then I found a seat and sat down, starting to shovel rice into my mouth. It seemed Chu Wanning only ate plain rice for lunch. Kids at this age have a lot of pride. Chu Wanning was no exception. I understood this very well, but what I wondered was, where on earth does she go after lunch? By 1 in the afternoon, a few students started trickling back into the classroom. Chu Wanning walked into the classroom with her bag. Her gaze turned toward the corner of the blackboard, where the duty list for students was usually written. Board duty. Podium. Goo black tortoise. Clearly someone had turned my name into a malicious joke. Chu Wanning walked over, erased the words black tortoise, then used chalk to rewrite Shaozi. Once finished, she coldly tossed the chalk onto the podium. Just as she left that spot, a voice called out from the classroom door. Chu Wanning, I just realized your new school bag matches mine. Chu Wanning turned her head and saw Song Xinyao standing there. She looked at Song Xinyao with expressionless eyes, not caring in the slightest. She just walked straight to her seat, put her bag down. Song Xinyao was embarrassed, but she didn't continue the provocation. She could only curse inwardly, calling her a freak. I don't know who she's putting on that cold face for every day. Actually, she didn't dare offend Chu Wanning, because a rumor about Chu Wanning was spreading among the girls. Word was that when the classes were first divided, Chu Wanning was envied by the other girls because of her beauty, and her personality was also too cold. At that time, a few girls blocked her path after school, intending to cut her hair with scissors, but they didn't expect Chu Wanning to be a crazy one. She directly snatched the scissors, right in front of those girls. She cut off her own long hair to ear length, then took the thick clump of freshly cut hair and threw it straight in their faces. From then on, Chu Wanning began to be called the Cold Beauty. The girls didn't dare touch her, and the boys didn't want to get involved either. Song Xinyao resentfully went back to her seat. 20 minutes later, the students gathered one by one. As for me, after having a good nap, I also appeared at the classroom door. Turning to my seat, I wanted to talk to Chu Wanning about her lunch situation, but thinking of her pride, I decided against it. I couldn't bear to mention it directly. Just then, homeroom teacher Qin Gui and class president Wang Mingwu walked in together. Qin Gui spoke up to explain, taking advantage of the time before English class begins. I want to discuss the upcoming autumn sports meet with the class. Same old rules. The whole class needs to choose a uniform for the parade. Hearing about choosing class uniforms, the sluggish classroom suddenly became lively. Qi Zhen even gave an excited, suggestive wink. At class president Wang Mingwu, Qin Gui presented 2 sample photos. One was a cheerleader outfit. The other was a black suit. The teacher spoke up. The class president has chosen 2 fairly standard uniform samples for us. Which one do you want to wear for the parade? The very next second, the boys in the class shouted excitedly in unison. Cheerleader outfit. Meanwhile, all the girls fell silent, their cheeks all flushed red. Only a few girls, including Song Xinyao, showed interest. At this age, girls don't usually wear short skirts, whether at home or at school. Everyone dressed quite modestly. I glanced to the side, seeing Chu Wanning still nonchalant, focusing on her book. I suddenly remembered the sports meet back in 11th grade. Chu Wanning hadn't participated in the parade because she was the only one in class who didn't buy the uniform. I looked away, not saying a word, just quietly observing the teacher and the rowdy students in front. Of course, I also wanted to see Chu Wanning in a beautiful cheerleader outfit. Naturally, I could pay for her, even buying a few dozen sets. I'd be willing to give them to her for free. But giving money or gifting the outfit is the most tactless solution, so I still had to temporarily maintain a calm attitude. At this point, Qin Gui waved his hand. Let's decide on that then. The girls will choose the cheerleader outfit. I'm not very familiar with these things. In short, within the coming week, please submit your money and sizes to the class president, so the class president can represent us and buy them all at once. Wai Mingwu clapped his hands, then added, Everyone remember, 1 set is 50 yuan. The boys cheered excitedly while the girls were bashfully expectant. Their faces were flushed with shyness. When Chu Wanning heard that price, she looked up in surprise, but immediately after, she quietly lowered her head and continued burying her head in her textbooks. An afternoon of boring classes also came to an end, since today was the first day of school. There was no evening self-study. After the 4th period in the afternoon finished, students were all free. On days with no evening self-study, and coincidentally the last period, was physical education, For the students, it was a burst of pure joy. I finished packing my school bag, turning my head toward Chu Wanning. So, it's a deal. This Saturday, come to my house for tutoring. Chu Wanning suddenly paused, while packing her bag. She replied in a cold tone, going to your house is fine, but there must be someone home. I nodded seriously and repeatedly. Of course, there will definitely be people there. Chu Wanning said nothing more. After finishing packing, she held her pink bag with both hands, turned to me and nodded with a suspicious look. I gave a radiant smile. I felt like I had just successfully lured someone's daughter, but I truly treated her like my own daughter. Seeing everyone in class had left, Chu Wanning and I also quickly went downstairs to gather. I intended to wait for her so we could walk together, but I noticed Chu Wanning was lingering far behind, as if she was intentionally trying to keep her distance from me. I didn't care and slung my blue bag over my shoulder. With hands in my pockets, I walked casually toward the stadium. Only then did Chu Wanning put on her pink bag, and gradually started walking a bit faster. Only then did she notice, looking from behind. Our blue and pink school bags looked a bit like a couple's matching items. Arriving at the stadium to warm up. After the run, the PE teacher announced the class was free to do whatever they wanted. All the students cheered at once. In an instant, they scattered like a flock of birds, while I ran toward the basketball court with a few boys. Chu Wanning walked toward the steps where the bags were kept. Whenever it was free time during PE, time that should have been used for studying, she would waste her gaze looking toward the basketball court. Right then, I was dribbling past someone quickly, making Wang Mingwu stumble from being tricked. Then I did a 3-step layup and performed a powerful dunk. The rim vibrated violently, making a ringing sound. I landed stylishly and gave my neck a slight twist. On the steps, Chu Wanning's beautiful eyes were looking toward the court in amazement. Song Xinyao and her 2 best friends watching were also left agape. Wang Mingwu frowned and looked at me with confusion. Gu Xiaoze, since when did you know how to dunk? These guys were originally the main players of Class 28. It wasn't like they hadn't played against me before, but this was the first time they saw me pull off a dunk. Even I felt a little surprised. From the time I was reincarnated yesterday until now, I realized my strength had increased significantly. My jumping ability had also improved tremendously. Let's consider this a surprise gift from reincarnation. I wish my IQ had skyrocketed like that too. Gaining some physical strength is of no use. Will it help me pass the university entrance exam? Standing by the sideline, Song Xinyao's face slightly flushed. She shouted excitedly, Gu Xiaoze, you were so cool just now. I gave her a cold glance, then immediately looked away, toward the steps in the distance. Suddenly, our eyes met. At that moment of eye contact, Chu Wanning hurriedly looked away, both hands clutching the literature textbook to her chest. Her lips moved, deliberately pretending to be focused on reciting by heart, but her earlobes had already turned red. This girl truly sits in the same spot forever. In playing ball so coolly, yet a girl like you won't even come over to take a look. I withdrew my gaze. Noticing Song Xinyao and her 2 friends still looking at me with infatuation, Gu Xiaoze, your dunk just now was truly amazing. Song Xinyao spoke again. Her tone carried a rare hint of praise. It felt like her complimenting someone was something extremely extravagant. I just gave a cold, oh. At this moment, I looked behind me. Suddenly, my expression changed drastically. I hurriedly dashed straight toward the steps over there. A crowd of students was gathering around the steps. I pushed through the crowd. Saw Chu Wanning sitting on the ground. Her face showed clear pain, her hands clutching her right foot. The PE teacher spoke up and asked, what happened? A girl standing nearby said hesitantly, I think I just saw some girl push Chu Wanning from behind. Then she rolled down from the steps. I spoke up coldly. What did that girl look like? What class is she in? Wang Ping glanced at me. Why is this guy using a tone like he's about to go on a blood vendetta? The girl lowered her head, spoke softly. I didn't see clearly. She ran away. Damn it, what kind of freak is that? Don't let me catch you. I didn't even bother to hide it and cursed loudly. Then I hurriedly stepped aside Chu Wanning and squatted down. Give me a hand, so I can take her to the infirmary. This girl I worked so hard to save, and yet there's still someone tired of living who dares to harm her so heartlessly. Several girls quickly stepped forward to support Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning had to stand on one leg, staring blankly at my broad back and my school uniform, still hesitating. Seeing she wasn't moving, I impatiently turned my head back, What are you waiting for? Get on. Chu Wanning bit her lips slightly, spread her arms, her upper body gently pressed against my back. At this very moment, my face, which was raging with anger, suddenly became peaceful. Seeing me just squatting there in a daze, the PE teacher frowned. What's wrong? Can't you carry her? If you can't carry her, let me do it instead. Hearing those words, Chu Wanning quickly wrapped both arms tightly around my neck. Her earlobes were as red as ripe fruit. She looked extremely bashful. While I, with a clear gaze, hurriedly spoke up, No, sir. My leg just went numb for a second. I'm fine now. I hurriedly stood up, gave a loud laugh toward the PE teacher. The PE teacher looked at me with a suspicious face. Once I was standing steadily, my two hands firmly supported Chu Wanning's legs. Seeing her seemingly about to slip down, I gave her a firm hoist to a higher position. In that moment, the whole world seemed to be shrinking onto my back. I couldn't find the words to describe this feeling. If I had to describe it, I could only say that regarding the phrase soft youth sister, I've gained a very profound understanding. Softness in the business world might just be a facade. But the softness right here and now is absolutely the real deal. Whoever gets to marry her in the future will truly be happy to the ends of the earth. Holding her all day probably wouldn't ever get boring. Carrying Chu Wanning to the side of the steps, I leaned down slightly, so Chu Wanning could pick up her school bag. Then I took 2 more steps forward, for Chu Wanning to hold my bag as well. Just hang my bag around my neck. It's very heavy. Hanging it like that will hurt your neck. Chu Wanning's voice sounded very softly, right next to my ear. Seeing her holding a bag in each hand, afraid her arms would get tired. So I quickened my pace toward the school's infirmary. What I couldn't see was the expression on the young girl's face at this moment. Revealed a radiant smile, warm as the spring sunshine, to the infirmary. I carried Chu Wanning on my back for a loop, but I didn't see the doctor anywhere. Where could everyone be? I walked around one more time, still no one. I had to set Chu Wanning down, on a bed covered with a disposable sheet. The young girl sat on the edge of the bed. Her toes just barely touched the floor. I searched one more time, still no one. Forget it. I'll do it myself. I pulled up a small stool and sat down across from Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning suddenly pressed her legs together. She asked warily, What are you planning to do? Let me see if it's just a sprain, a dislocation, or a fracture. Both of Chu Wanning's ears turned bright red, but she still asked in a cold tone, Do you even know how to check? That goes without saying. Back in the countryside, I used to set the bones of the village sows all the time. Chu Wanning didn't understand why a sow would. Suddenly, she realized something. Both embarrassed and angry, she lightly punched my shoulder. I laughed out loud. While reaching out to grab Chu Wanning's right foot, the cloth shoes on her feet were very clean, but the soles were covered in cracks. The cracks had even started to turn yellow. It looked like they were bought a long time ago. I took off her shoe. Clean white sock appeared before my eyes. Chu Wanning bit her lips shyly. She pressed her legs tightly together. But my next move made her so embarrassed and angry that she almost kicked me to death. I suddenly raised my hand and brought her white socked foot with its beautiful curve close to my nose, sniffing it. Before Chu Wanning could even react, she heard me ask in confusion, It's been all day. Can I ask why your feet don't stink? Gu Xiaozi, are you crazy? Even though Chu Wanning was usually so elegant and quiet, at this moment she couldn't help but shout a curse. A moment later, I spoke with a slightly more relieved expression. It's no big deal, just a sprain. It's not too swollen either. A little safflower oil will do. Having said that, I turned to search the drawer behind me. Sure enough, I found half a bottle of safflower oil. Students spraining their ankles is a daily occurrence at school. In cases like this, the school doctor probably just applies this stuff too. After applying the safflower oil to Chu Wanning, we left immediately. At that moment, the small inner room of the infirmary opened. 2 men who had been hiding inside walked out. A young school doctor wearing a white coat, followed by a middle-aged man. He was the head of the 12th grade. His name was Ji Hao. 12th graders often secretly called him by a nickname. This grade head was Ji Rishan. The school doctor spoke, somewhat speechless. Director G, it's just a hemorrhoid exam. Students arrived. You could have just pulled your pants up. Why did you have to drag me into hiding? Gahao, his face pale, patted the other's shoulder. Xiao Wu, in broad daylight, 2 men in a small room. And I happened to be pulling my pants up. What do you think those students would imagine? The school doctor named Xiao Wu
suddenly froze. School was out by now. Shu Wanning said she wanted to go back to class to study. I had no choice but to let her head toward the lecture hall building, while I went toward the parking shed. Getting ready to take my bike home, as I walked my bike to the school gate, I couldn't stop thinking about Chu Wanning's injured foot. I have no idea where this girl lives. Is it far? In this state, was she really going to limp all the way home? I let out a sigh, patted the bike seat, helplessly turned back toward the lecture hall building. Fine, I'll take her home today. Walking outside the window of class 1228, I slowed my pace and stopped. The classroom was empty. Chu Wanning wasn't studying at all. She was limping around the teacher's platform, holding a chalkboard eraser, trying to stand on her tiptoes to erase the writing on the blackboard. The third period this afternoon was history, and the history teacher was a man standing 1.9 meters tall, who loved to write at the very top of the board, so it was quite a struggle for Chu Wanning to erase it. She strained to raise the eraser, reaching her right arm up high, but she still couldn't reach the top part of the board, where those flamboyant words were written. My eyes silently shifted to the corner listing the students on duty. It said, Blackboard duty, platform duty, Gu Shaozi on the platform. Chu Wanning discouragedly let her arm drop. She really couldn't reach it. She stood there resting for a moment, then took a deep breath, and let out a heave-ho. Hopped up on one foot, raising her arm as hard as she could, reaching out to touch the blackboard, way up high. But just as the eraser was about to touch the writing, a large hand appeared in Chu Wanning's field of vision. That hand snatched the eraser from her. Chu Wanning turned her head and her heel dropped back to the floor. Her injured ankle caused her to lurch to one side. Seeing this, I quickly grabbed her arm and pulled her upright. Our eyes met. Chu Wanning looked like she'd done something wrong and had been caught red-handed. She stammered, Didn't you go home already?" I stared at her. Without rushing to answer, I tossed the eraser in my hand, then raised it, easily reaching the top lines. Cleaned the board, then threw the eraser onto the platform. No wonder I never cleaned the board before. Yet the teacher never gave me a hard time the next morning. "Tell me, do you always help me clean up my mess?" I scratched my head as I spoke, correcting myself. I mean, help me erase the board, not clean up a mess." Chu Wanning turned her face away, speaking without daring to look me in the eye. "It's not like that." Her gaze turned frantic like a thief with a guilty conscience. She looked up and stole another glance at me. "If there's nothing else, I'm going back to study." With that, she turned to step off the platform. I quickly grabbed her arm. "Stop studying for today. Your foot is injured. Let me take you home. You can study there." Chu Wanning refused immediately. "I don't need a ride." I frowned. "Then where do you live? Is it far?" She shook her head, saying, "It's not far." I looked at her suspiciously. "Fine if you won't let me take you. But you're only allowed to study until 6:30. You must go home at 6:30 sharp. I'll stay in class to keep an eye on you." Chu Wanning's eyes showed a hint of grievance. She glanced at me. "Then I won't study. I'm going home right now." I smiled and nodded. "See, isn't it better to be obedient?" Once she finished packing her bag, I walked toward the classroom door. On the platform, there was another sound. I turned my head to look back. I saw Chu Wanning meticulously cleaning the chalk dust off the platform. And my duty, indeed, included both the blackboard and the platform. This girl even claimed she wouldn't help me with my duty, yet she did the whole package. After finishing the platform, she finally put on her bag and walked over. Looking down, she brushed past me with an awkward expression. I burst out laughing, and followed silently behind. A true tsundere ice queen. Those words suddenly felt so vivid. I walked my bike with a young girl to the school gate, getting ready for each of us to head home. But I still patted the back seat of my bike and said, "How about I give you a ride? It's no trouble at all." Chu Wanning gripped her sleeve tightly, looking at me with a very awkward expression. "No need, if my father sees a strange boy approaching me." I was stunned. "Then what?" Chu Wanning lowered her head and purred. "Hell chase them away with a stick." Hearing that, I instinctively raised my eyebrows in surprise. "Your dad is that fierce?" An embarrassed look briefly crossed Chu Wanning's face. She nodded slightly, then turned to walk in the opposite direction. I called out after her, "Hey, Chu Yuan." Ming turned back to look at me inquisitively. I said helplessly, "Do you have any manners? You're going home and don't even know how to say goodbye?" Hearing this, Chu Wanning's elegant, cold face revealed a rare smile. "Goodbye, then." I stood there grinning from ear to ear, a smile full of kind indulgence, watching the girl walk with a slight stumble, but overall it didn't look too serious. I turned around, hopped on my bike, relieved, and pedaled toward home. Hearing a sound from behind, Shu Wanning also quickly turned her head. She stared at my back as I rode away, standing still for a long time. Until I disappeared into the crowd, Shu Wanning finally snapped out of her thoughts. After arriving home, I pointed at the ceiling and shouted a solemn oath to my parents and sister. I will work hard at my studies. And determined to excel, I will definitely get into a prestigious university. Hearing her sons shouting, Mom cooperatively clapped her hands with enthusiasm, while Dad, sitting at the table, burst out laughing, calmly cracking melon seeds. I announced proudly and clearly, last semester I was second to last in the whole grade. That's progress. Suddenly, Dad dropped all the seeds in his hand onto the floor, looking over in shock. For real? Couldn't blame Dad for reacting that way, since ID held the bottom spot in the grade for 2 years straight. Of course it's real. Someone skipped the exam. So naturally, I became second to last. Hearing that, the smile vanished from Dad's face. He tossed the handful of seeds onto the plate. Listening to this brat talk just wasted a few more seconds of my life. I remember back then with a 100-point exam, your old man even managed to score 37. And you, with a 150-point exam, barely got over 20. My academic genes. You didn't inherit even a single bit. It seems I've found the reason why I'm bad at studying. After speaking, Dad waved his hand. Forget it. Like playing a lute to a cow. I'm going to mind the supermarket. Mom asked curiously, Isn't Aunt Lou there? What are you going there for? My father waved his hand and said, Her grandson was just born, so she took leave to care for him. The supermarket is short-staffed now. Hearing this, an idea suddenly sparked in my heart. I spoke up quickly. Dad, I know someone who can replace Aunt Lou. Dad turned his head to ask, Who? I continued, A classmate of mine. Dad glanced at me. A student? What can they possibly get done? I rushed to pull him back, pleading. They can come watch the store after school in the evening. Just pay them a bit less. Hearing that, Dad fell into deep thought. Fair enough. Let them work so their grades slip. That's one less rival for you in the college entrance exam. Good idea. Bring them here for an interview with me tomorrow. I'm heading to the supermarket. I immediately went back to my room, pulled a dusty cardboard box from under the bed. Inside were all my textbooks from 10th and 11th grade. After cleaning the pile of books, I carried them all to my desk. My knowledge of 10th and 11th grade is almost zero. This time I must focus on studying. But reading books really makes me sleepy. Half an hour later, I slumped onto the desk and fell fast asleep. Early the next morning, I was at the school gate. Just then, I saw Song Jinyao being stopped by a teacher. The glasses-wearing teacher was scolding Song Jinyao with a stern face. She lowered her head as if repentant. I acted like I didn't see, and walked my bike through the school gate. Song Jinyao suddenly looked up and saw my back. She rubbed her eyes in disbelief. Did the sun rise in the west today? Gu Xiaozi is actually at school this early. The bell for the first period rang. I quietly stuffed a bag of steamed buns I just bought into Chu Wanning's desk. Don't say anything. Save it for the break. Chu Wanning was staring intently at my neck right now, hesitating to say something. I waved my hand, explaining, Don't worry. I studied too late yesterday, so I purposely tightened my collar to keep myself awake. After hearing this, Chu Wanning looked at me in disbelief, then seemed to suddenly realize something, responding coldly, I wasn't worried at all. I smirked slightly, closed my eyes and slumped onto the desk. Listening to the lecture is useless now. I have absolutely no basic knowledge from before. Listening now would be like a duck listening to thunder. Right now I'm slumping over the desk. 1, to rest my mind. 2, to reinforce what I studied yesterday in my head. Chu Wanning touched the hot steam buns and pursed her lips slightly. While I was sleeping, she secretly took 2 of them, hid them in her plastic lunchbox. Actually, I had already noticed. I just didn't want to expose her. About 10 minutes later, I lifted my head from the desk. Seeing that I was awake, Chu Wanning quickly turned around, confessing with an extremely serious face, I just stole 2 of your steamed buns. I turned to look at her. Laughing, I said, So you stole them. Why do you need to report it to me? Chu Wanning lowered her head, looking extremely embarrassed, then quickly turned away again. Both her ears were bright red. You could tell she was someone who couldn't lie at all. But this is the first time I've seen someone lie so adorably. Soon the morning classes were over. It was lunchtime. Song Xinyao walked toward the back row. Gu Xiaozi, can you eat with me today? I shook my head and glanced at her, saying, no, I have to study. With that, I laid out a 10th grade textbook on the desk and started reading. Song Xinyao stomped her foot in anger.
What are you acting all high and mighty for? What kind of studying can you do with those grades? You're just playing hard to get with me, aren't you?
Hearing this, Chu Wanning shot Song Xinyao a cold look, then lowered her head to keep studying. I slammed the desk, pointed toward the classroom door and said, if you know what's good for you, get lost on your own. Don't make me kick you out. Song Xinyao looked aggrieved as if about to cry. The best friend she usually ate with quickly dragged her out. Let's go, let's go. Don't bother with someone like him. Only then did Song Xinyao give me a spiteful glare, after everyone in the class had left. Only Chu Wanning and I remained. Meanwhile, Chu Wanning turned to steal a look at the person next to her. Seeing that I was truly serious about studying, my change caused Chu Wanning to let out a small smile. But the very next second I looked over, Chu Wanning immediately turned her face away. With an embarrassed look, she leaned down and flipped through a book. Time passed minute by minute. It was Chu Wanning's usual lunchtime. She stood up. I stood up at the same time, stretching my arms. Studying feels so refreshing. Probably not much left in the cafeteria by now. Chu Wanning ignored me, silently put on her bag and left the classroom, while I leisurely followed behind. Arriving at the cafeteria food counter, I went to the table where Chu Wanning was sitting and sat down across from her. The young girl looked up at me once, then looked down to eat quietly. I grabbed my bag, pulled out a bunch of snacks from the supermarket and spread them on the table. Man, I knew there wouldn't be anything good left to eat this late, so I had to bring these snacks. Mumbling, I tore open the packaging of chicken drumsticks, braised eggs, and sausages, putting them all into my food tray. Just about to eat, I suddenly stopped. What's wrong with me today? I don't have any appetite at all. Probably because I eat this stuff every day and I'm bored of it. So I looked up at the girl across from me, pulled her food tray toward me, and pushed my tray full of snacks to her. Here. Let's swap meals today.
Chu Wanning looked up with a stunned expression. I quickly pointed my finger toward her. Don't say a word. Chu Wanning stared at me blankly, pursing her lips, not daring to speak. I lowered my head and started devouring the food. The young girl watched me eat silently, from the very spots she had already eaten from. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. I kept praising the food as I ate, saying, so good, so good. Why does your food taste better than mine? But Chu Wanning had no intention of hitting me. She quietly picked up her chopsticks. Her voice was very soft. Thank you. I pretended not to hear. A moment later, I had polished off the rice in the tray, looked up at her and said, oh, right. My supermarket is looking for a night cashier. I'm officially notifying you now. You've been hired. Chu Wanning was stunned once again. Looking up at me, I still pointed at her imperiously. The pay is only half of a regular employee's. If you dare say you're unhappy or refuse, well, you know the consequences. Chu Wanning looked at me silently, then nodded very seriously. I'm not unhappy at all. I agree. I looked at her with satisfaction. That's good then. Chu Wanning, with a joyful expression, went back to eating. She only ate one braised egg and half of the white rice, placed her lunchbox on her lap, then poured all the remaining rice from the tray, along with the chicken drumstick, braised egg, and sausage into the lunchbox. I watched, stunned. What are you doing? Chu Wanning looked up. I'm taking it home for my father to eat. What? Taking it home for your father? I felt like my ears had just heard something unbelievable. No way. You mean you're going to leave school now to take this food to him? Chu Wanning nodded slightly. Seeing my expression, as if I were disapproving, Chu Wanning silently stopped, and stopped putting more food into the lunchbox. After all, these snacks were brought by me. She sat there timidly, her face looking a bit awkward, as if waiting for me to take the food back. Because she understood clearly that I only intended for her to eat, not for her father. I really couldn't understand. Honestly, I've been unhappy with Chu Wanning's father for a long time, not to mention forcing his daughter to steal bread from the supermarket.
but also making her bring food home from the school cafeteria. I felt a nameless fire of anger flare up in my heart. If it were for wanting to preserve Chu Wanning's dignity, I would have gone to her house to settle the score with him long ago. I took a deep breath and couldn't help but slam my hand onto the table, making the 2 food trays rattle violently. Chu Wanning was also startled and terrified, looking up and stealing a quick glance at me. 2 streams of tears fell without warning. "I'm sorry." After the choked-up apology, Chu Wanning quickly used her sleeve to wipe away the tears. Then she took the snacks out of the lunchbox again and put them back onto the food tray, then pushed the tray toward me. I stared in a daze. "What are you doing now?" Chu Wanning lowered her head. "I'm full. Thank you for giving me these. Truly, thank you so much." To prevent me from thinking she was sulking, Chu Wanning looked up, forcing a smile that looked more painful than crying. She knew that my willingness to give her food, already an act of great kindness, it was her own lack of manners. To want to take that food for someone else. I was almost driven to laughter by her stubbornness. I pushed the tray back. "No, it's not that. I never said you couldn't take it home. Just at least eat the drumstick yourself. Give the rest to him later." Chu Wanning lowered her head and shook it slightly. "I'm really full. I really can't eat anymore. This stubborn girl, forget it. There's just no winning with her." I didn't have the heart to scold her right now. After all, filial piety is a virtue. If anyone is to blame, it's her father. So I composed myself and said immediately, all right, let him have it. I'll let you put it in the lunchbox." Chu Wanning quietly looked up at me. I squeezed out a friendly, gentle smile to prove I didn't mind. Only then did she feel safe enough to pick up her chopsticks again. She put the snacks into the lunchbox, then tucked it into her bag. After standing up, she gave me a slight bow and whispered, "Thank you." With an expressionless face, I told myself, "Don't call me a good person. Please, don't say I'm a good person." Chu Wanning said nothing. Watching her back as she left the cafeteria, I let out a long sigh. It would be so wonderful if she were my daughter, I thought to myself, then gave a helpless chuckle. Chu Wanning left school but didn't head straight home. Instead, she went to the gates of Linchin Middle School. She had attended middle school here as well. After crossing the street, Chu Wanning spotted a middle-aged man from a distance. He was sitting by the greenery opposite the school gate. He sat very properly, his back straight as a rod, staring intently at the school gate, as if afraid he might miss someone. School was over. Seeing this sight, Chu Wanning's usually cold face broke into a smile. She quickly adjusted her bag and ran toward him. Taking advantage of the man's distraction, she tiptoed, like a playful little girl, quietly approaching step by step from behind. Then she reached out and lightly tapped his shoulder. The middle-aged man spun around in startle, looking around frantically. Seeing no one, he turned back. Just then, the girl's pure, smiling face suddenly appeared before him. Chu Wanning spoke with a smile. It's me, Wanwan." The man looked at his daughter. He joyfully called out her name, then immediately scrambled to his feet, bowing his head and apologizing incessantly. "I'm sorry, I didn't see Wanwan finish school. He kept muttering to himself, his tone incredibly naive, like a 5- or 6-year-old child. His fingers were twisting together in anxious agitation. Chu Wanning quickly helped him sit back down, trying to soothe him. "It's because I ran too fast. That's why you didn't see me." The man repeated his daughter's words like a toddler learning to speak. Chu Wanning looked at him with gentle eyes. Then she took the lunchbox and clean chopsticks from her bag. Time to eat. The middle-aged man braced his hands on the steps, swinging his legs like a child. Chu Wanning didn't rush to feed him. She took out tissues and a water bottle, wetting a tissue with the water. As she wiped the dust from his face, she gently chided him. "Why did you let your face get so dirty?" "Wanwan, I'm sorry," the man said, feeling wronged. Chu Wanning wiped his face, while speaking softly. "It's okay. Wanwan isn't mad at you." After that, she opened the lunchbox, wrapped the drumstick in a clean tissue, and handed it to her father. "Drumstick, drumstick." The man cheered in excitement, but didn't reach out to take it. Instead, he looked at Chu Wanning with concern, urged her. Wanwan, eat quickly. The bad guys are coming." Chu Wanning played along with his tone. "I already ate. I even had 2 of them. Hurry up and eat, Dad. Bad guys are coming." She then used the chopsticks to bring some rice to his mouth. At that moment, at the gates of Linchin Middle School, Gu Miao Yun came skipping out.
She was holding 2 freshly bought pineapple buns. Dad, do you think I can eat both of them? I'm not leaving any for Brother Xiaoze. Gu Yuandong pinched her nose. You better watch out. Your brother will spank you if he finds out. Gu Miaoyun huffed playfully. She was about to cross the street to the other side when she spotted that beautiful older sister again, sitting and eating with a man in overalls. Gu Miaoyun stared for a moment, and a smile spread across her face. She skipped toward them, bun in hand. It was past 1 in the afternoon. Chu Wanning returned to the classroom with her bag, seeing me for once sitting at my desk and actually studying. She took the initiative to smile and greet me. Good afternoon. I turned around in astonishment, staring at her as if had seen a ghost. Chu Wanning grew shy under my gaze. She avoided my eyes and asked softly, What's wrong? I teased her. Oh, is the sun rising in the west today? To think the cold, aloof girl would actually greet me first. Chu Wanning remained silent, awkwardly putting her bag away. She unzipped her bag and took out her textbook for the first period. I asked casually, So, did my father-in-law enjoy his meal? Chu Wanning replied with a happy tone. Very much so. I turned to look at her, noticing the faint smile at the corners of her mouth. I asked, Is that why you're so happy this afternoon? Chu Wanning stared at me in a daze, then nodded blankly after a long pause. I gave a soft chuckle. I really didn't know what else to say, and there wasn't much to say anyway. I could only instruct her. After evening self-study ends today, come with me to the supermarket. My dad is waiting for you there. He's the boss. He says he wants to interview you. Hearing this, Chu Wanning's head snapped toward me in surprise. I raised an eyebrow. Don't worry. My dad might be a bit eccentric, but he's actually quite easygoing. He won't make things hard for you on purpose. Chu Wanning finally breathed a sigh of relief. Having never been interviewed before, she truly didn't know how to handle it. Was she supposed to stand there and recite trigonometric formulas? Chu Wanning asked softly, Why do you talk about your dad like that? My expression became odd. I'm not just talking about him. I want to talk about your dad, too. Your dad is the one who's truly eccentric. Just as I finished, a small but powerful fist suddenly slammed into my chest. The blow actually stung quite a bit. I looked at Chu Wanning in shock, only to find her staring at me with red, teary eyes. Tears began to pool in the corners of her eyes, but Chu Wanning quickly looked away with a complex expression. I'm sorry. Chu Wanning apologized. The atmosphere grew silent. I rubbed my chest and took a deep breath. Then I said, All right. I'm sorry too. I apologize to you. I know you're filial. I shouldn't have said that. About your father. Chu Wanning turned her face away, so I wouldn't see the falling tears. At this moment, her nose suddenly felt sour and stinging. She felt a wave of grievance. It seemed that with my words, all the pent-up pain from all those years poured out from the depths of her heart. The heavy shadows of the past were suffocating her. But Chu Wanning had never given up. She considered herself very strong. She told herself she had to be resilient. But when the boy beside her spoke those comforting words, Chu Wanning finally realized that she had just been forcing herself all along. In this instant, that force strength seemed to vanish completely. I couldn't help but speak up. I truly don't know your family situation. If your father for some special reason cannot. Chu Wanning interrupted immediately. My dad is very normal. I took the hint and shut my mouth. It was clear she didn't want to talk about it. But if Chu Wanning protected her father like that, maybe he wasn't a bad person. Perhaps he was bedridden for some other reason. Still, I just couldn't understand. During the 4 classes this afternoon, Chu Wanning remained very quiet. I intended to talk to her, but seeing her cold expression, I gave up on the idea. When it came time for evening self-study, due to a power outage, the session ended early today. After Chu Wanning finished packing her bag, she followed me to the bike shed. Noticing that the girl's expression looked a bit uneasy, I asked, The interview is coming up. Are you feeling nervous? Chu Wanning looked at me and nodded immediately. I said with a smile, What's there to be nervous about? Just imagine my dad's head as a big radish later. No matter what he says, just nod and smile, and just say yes. Chu Wanning lowered her head as if tickled by the thought, lightly pursing her lips. I loved seeing her smile. Because when this girl smiled, she was breathtaking. It's just a shame she kept that cold face on every day. Leading the bike outside, I saw the girl with her bag walking quietly. I looked at her in surprise. You have a ride, but won't take it. Are you planning to walk? With that, I patted the back seat of the bike. Looking at the crowd at the school gate, Chu Wanning stood frozen in place. Her small, nervous hands shyly gripped the hem of her uniform pants. She stubbornly shook her head repeatedly. What does shaking your head mean? Before I could even ask, Chu Wanning bashfully turned away. Her hands tightly gripped her bag straps as she quietly walked ahead with her head down. Watching the day's students pass by one after another, I suddenly understood. This girl must be feeling embarrassed. After all, so many eyes were watching at the school gate. Moreover, if someone who knew Chu Wanning saw the cold bell on the back of my bike, it would definitely spread across the school by tomorrow. Thinking about the girl before, who had secretly pushed Chu Wanning down the steps, I couldn't help but blame myself silently. I was being too thoughtless. Chu Wanning did have some fame in school after all. If there were people bullying her, there would surely be people spreading rumors. I purposefully slowed down as I walked my bike, keeping a significant distance behind Chu Wanning. Recognizing my subtle gesture, Chu Wanning's tense heart relaxed a little. We maintained a distance of about 15 to 20 meters, walking silently, one ahead and one behind. Chu Wanning occasionally looked back to see if I was still following. Each time I tilted my head and smiled at her. Not long after, there were no more students left on the street. I pedaled up beside her. Get on. No one will see us now. Chu Wanning obediently walked around the bike. She stood on her tiptoes and sat sideways on the back seat. I spoke up, sounding annoyed. If you don't hold on to me, you'll definitely fall off. Hearing that, Chu Wanning's long eyelashes quivered slightly. She slowly reached out her fair hand, and like a thief, she lightly gripped the hem of my uniform. I was truly speechless. I just started pedaling. But I also released one hand, ready to catch the girl behind me as the bike took off. Chu Wanning immediately lost her balance. With a small cry escaping her lips, she hurriedly wrapped both arms tightly around my waist. Seeing she wasn't completely inflexible, I gave a small laugh and returned my protective hand to the handlebars. I called out loudly from the front. No one's looking anyway. There's nothing going on between us, so what's wrong with holding my waist while riding? Chu Wanning lowered her head, her ears turning beet red. Her arms felt numb, and she didn't dare use any strength, simply maintaining her embrace. If it were anyone else pedaling, perhaps Chu Wanning wouldn't mind so much, nor would she be so timid. But it was me in front. After the initial shyness, the girl's lips curled into a rare, happy smile. If only the world could stop at this moment, she thought wistfully to herself. But for Chu Wanning, happiness could belong to anyone. Except her. She was the one chosen by misfortune, and it had been that way since she was a child. I was humming a song softly now, pedaling leisurely toward my family's large supermarket. Chu Wanning looked up curiously and asked, "What song are you singing?" "I've never heard it before." "That's impossible." I tilted my head slightly, slowing my pedaling. I suddenly remembered this song probably wasn't released until 2017, but it was only 2015 now. I smiled with a touch of melancholy. I almost forgot that I had been reincarnated. My first wish after returning was to get into a good university, to make up for the regret of not going to college in my past life. After being reborn, one must have priorities. I've already been reborn. Should I really still pour all my energy into making money? I was already a slave to money before I came back. Did I really want to do it all over again? What is the true essence of reincarnation? First, it gives you back your youth. Second, it grants you the chance to make money. My main goal in returning was to enjoy my youth. Of course, I still have to make money, but that can wait until after the college entrance exams. Besides, my old man has money. That's one of the reasons I'm in no rush. If I could get into the same university as Chu Wanning, that would be truly wonderful. But I felt like that was just a pipe dream. Chu Wanning's goal is definitely Tsinghua or Peking University. As for the exams, the upcoming monthly test, the seating arrangements in the exam hall, might be the only time Chu Wanning and I cross paths. Once the monthly exam is over, Chu Wanning will return to the top spot in the first exam room, while Suddenly, I slammed on the brakes. Chu Wanning jumped in fright. Her whole body slammed into my back. The soft sensation from behind sent a momentary thrill through me. Then I pulled myself together. I looked solemnly at the red light at the intersection ahead and made a bold declaration to the girl. "Chu Wanning, I don't want to be at the bottom anymore. I'm going to study hard. I don't want to sit in the last exam room anymore. I have to get into a really good university." By the crosswalk, pedestrians all turned their heads at once, looking over with expressions of surprise. Behind me, the girl's ears were beet red as she hung her head. I'll do my best to tutor you, all right? The light is green. Let's go quickly. Chu Wanning urged in a whisper, feeling as though she might just crumble from embarrassment. For the first time, she wanted to smack me for being so overly extroverted. After passing through a few streets, finally we arrived at the supermarket. It was called the Four Seasons Fresh Foods Supermarket. This was considered a fairly large grocery store in this Wangjiang Road area.
After Chu Wanning got off the bike, I parked it right in front of the entrance. I told her to wait outside for a moment so I could go in and talk to them first. The girl stood where she was and nodded obediently, but her fingers kept nervously plucking at her shirt, betraying her anxious state. Because this time, it wasn't just about meeting the boss, it was about meeting my father. Even though she knew meeting my dad didn't carry any special significance for her, she was still extremely tense. I walked into the supermarket and saw my dad holding a notebook, checking the stock on the shelves and taking notes. "Dad!" I shouted loudly, giving my dad a real fright. "What are you screaming for?" I cleared my throat
And pointed outside. I brought the person. Just give her an overview of the situation. Don't ask too many questions, okay? Hearing this, my dad stepped forward excitedly. Let me see which unlucky child is about to have their studies neglected. Gu Yuandong went outside and saw Chu Wanning standing by the door. She immediately turned around, her long, curved eyelashes trembling slightly. She greeted him with a panicked tone. Hello, uncle. The smile on my dad's face suddenly froze. He squeezed out a hello. The moment he finished, my dad hurriedly grabbed my arm and dragged me back inside the supermarket. You little brat, where did you trick a girl as fresh and pretty as morning dew from? I thought it was going to be some boy. Aren't you afraid her father will come and kill you? I chuckled. She's my deskmate. My dad gave my head a painful rap. This girl obviously looks like she comes from a well-bred family. How could she possibly be short of money? Did you trick her, you brat? With that, he started to take off his shoe to give me a beating. My natural reflexes were quick, and I hurriedly dodged to the side. I argued back. I didn't trick anyone. She's here voluntarily. My dad lunged at me in anger. That doesn't matter. Tell the girl to go home. You brat, don't make it so I can't even run this supermarket anymore. He kicked me, sending me flying out of the supermarket. I stood in front of the entrance, scratching my head a bit awkwardly. Chu Wanning gave a timid smile. Her fair hands were clasped in front of her stomach, twisting together. Student Gu, I should go home now. She hung her head as she finished, her lips twitching slightly in an awkward manner. Then she turned and walked into the dark night. I was surprised by her reaction and quickly chased after her. Grabbing her arm, I said, "Wait." The girl was forced to turn around, trying to hide her reddened eyes behind her hair. Even so, she still tried to force a very strange smile. It's getting late. If my dad doesn't see me come home, he'll be very worried. And going home now. She must have just heard the arguing inside, though she probably couldn't hear clearly. She only knew that my father and I were shouting at each other. She had come here feeling both nervous and hopeful, but the moment she heard the shouting, she instinctively blamed herself for the conflict. I glanced back at the supermarket, not letting go of her arm. I said seriously, "Just wait a little longer, just a moment. If you leave now, I won't be easy on you." I pointed at Chu Wanning and prepared to go back inside, but Chu Wanning hurriedly grabbed my arm. Her eyes red and tearful. She pleaded desperately, "Don't." Arguing. Her voice was trembling. After being stunned for a moment, I smiled to comfort her. "Don't you worry. A real man never uses arguments to solve his problems." With that, I walked toward the supermarket entrance and kicked the door wide open. My dad was at the counter and turned to look at me in shock. "Do you have a death wish?" I held up 4 fingers, looking at my dad with a serious face. "Dad, just let her work here. I'll make it into the top 40 of the class in this month's exam." Hearing those words, my dad's anger immediately vanished. He looked me up and down with great interest. Top 30. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. "You old man, are you trying to scam me?" Hearing that, my dad glared at me and reached for his shoe. I strategically backed away quickly. "Fine then. Top 35 it is." Only then did my dad snort coldly and spoke up. "If you don't make the top 35, tell that girl to beat it." "I mean what I say, so you better figure it out." I smirked. "There are 53 people in the class. To make it into the top 35, it means jumping at least 500 ranks in the whole grade. Sounds pretty exciting, doesn't it? Or should I just cheat?" Strategies began racing through my mind. Just as I was about to go fetch Chu Wanning, my dad's voice called out from behind me. He deliberately lowered his voice. "Do you like that girl?
I was startled. Turning back, my dad gave me a knowing look. Then he said, "Why would someone like her even look at you? Even if you go this far for her, she won't spare you a second glance in the future. Just give it up." I snorted, ignoring my father's words. My feelings for Chu Wanning have always been pure. I strictly see her as a daughter I'm raising. After I stepped outside, my dad sighed softly behind me, but a faint smile touched his lips. Using this chance to improve the kids' grades isn't a bad idea, he thought to himself. Walking to the outside of the supermarket, Chu Wanning was very obedient. She hadn't left yet, except earlier she was standing under the entrance light. Now she was standing in a dark corner. Her slender figure looked so lonely. My heart ached seeing her like that. But I spoke up anyway. "What are you doing there? Planning to laugh at me?" Chu Wanning hurriedly walked out upon hearing that. I was about to say something, when I noticed the lingering teardrops at the corner of her eyes. She explained softly, "No, I wasn't. There were customers just now, so I just stepped aside." I grabbed her arm and pulled her into the supermarket, bringing her before my father. "Follow me, kid." "Young lady, let me give you a tour first," my dad said, glancing at Chu Wanning, that pink backpack. Chu Wanning immediately followed obediently and took a notebook and pen from her bag, looking like she was ready to take serious notes. My dad looked at her with amusement. He said, "It's not that serious. There's nothing too vital for you to do. Besides, you can only come for a bit in the evenings, right?" Chu Wanning nodded. "Yes, sir." The two of them walked ahead. I followed behind, watching Chu Wanning's back like she was my own daughter. A faint smile appeared on my face. My dad instructed the girl as they walked. The daily tasks were few and light, but Chu Wanning still took notes diligently, mostly stocking shelves, handling the checkout counter, and doing some cleaning when it's quiet at night. Keep an eye on the refrigeration in the fresh meat section. Following behind, I suddenly almost slipped, hurriedly grabbing onto something. Then I looked down at a yellow puddle on the floor. My dad and Chu Wanning both turned around. My dad spoke up irritably. "Earlier this evening, some kid took off his pants and peed right here," saying that. He turned to look at me. "Clean that mess up later." I rolled my eyes at him. "Why didn't you clean it yourself? You left it all this time just waiting for me to do it." My dad glared at me and said, "In the boss." Having said that, he turned back to finish instructing the girl. After the tour, the three of us returned to the counter. My dad put on his jacket and said, "Teach your friend how to handle the payments. I'm heading home now." After my dad left, I told Chu Wanning, who was reviewing her notes, "Feel free to look around on your own. Get a bit more familiar with the place. They'll write down a list of things to keep in mind for you, including the procedures and how to operate things." Chu Wanning looked over and nodded slightly. A few minutes later, after I finished writing the list of precautions, I noticed my dad had come back. I forgot my bag. My dad muttered to himself and walked toward the shelves. I didn't pay him any attention. But a moment later, I saw my dad standing still as a statue, staring in one direction. I hurried over to my dad's side, and I was stunned too. There, between two shelves, the girl was kneeling on the floor, using a rag shed found somewhere, earnestly scrubbing the puddle off the floor. Her back looked so quiet and solitary, silently and devotedly doing what she believed she ought to do. My dad watched the scene, his expression showing a hint of emotion. Then he quietly turned to look at me and whispered, "Who exactly is that girl?" I took a deep breath, replied with a heavy heart, "She's a good kid." Hearing this, my dad frowned slightly. "Aren't you two the same age? Don't act like an old man in front of me." But of course, he could see for himself that he just hired a truly good kid to work in the supermarket. My dad glanced at me and said under his breath, "If you don't make the top 35, she's still getting fired. No negotiations." With that, he took his bag and left. I looked ahead, toward the girl kneeling on the floor scrubbing. Hearing the sound behind her, Chu Wanning turned around. She slowly stood up, looking at me questioningly. I gave her forehead a gentle flick. "Are you silly? There's a mop, you know. Why do you have to kneel on the floor? Why use a rag?" Chu Wanning looked at me with slightly aggrieved eyes. I could only find the rag. I leaned down and helped brush the dust off her knees. "Even so, it didn't have to be you cleaning it. There are other people in the supermarket." Chu Wanning shyly took a step back, bowing her head low. The gentleman said, "When it's quiet at night, I can take the chance to clean a bit." "You're actually talking back to me?" I put on a stern face and pointed at her. Chu Wanning looked up at me with fear, thinking I was about to flick her forehead again, so she instinctively shrank back, closing her eyes tight in fright. Her long eyelashes trembled slightly. But when I didn't make a move, Chu Wanning peeked her eyes open, only to hear my disdainful voice. "Throw that rag away, it's filthy." The girl blinked and asked, "Throw it where?" I looked at her blankly. "Throw it at my face." Chu Wanning lowered her head, her face flushing red from my scolding. She looked around uncertainly. Finally, she gently dropped the rag on the floor. Only then did I turn and say, "Follow me," passing by a small door. I pointed and said, "Over there is the utility room. Go wash your hands in there first. Then meet me at the checkout counter, okay?" After washing her hands, Chu Wanning went to the counter. I was taking money out of the drawer, and looking at Chu Wanning, I said, "Hold out your hand." Chu Wanning looked dazed and refused to reach out. I had to explain, "It's a tradition at my family's supermarket. We pay our employees in advance at the start of every month. Every staff member here gets it." She just kept staring at me, with those beautiful eyes of hers, as if she could see right through me. I tapped lightly on the counter, deliberately acting tough with her. "What's with that look? Not enough for you?" Chu Wanning lowered her head and answered softly, "I don't want to take it in advance." I slammed my hand on the counter. "Dare to defy the boss? Do you believe I'll fire you?" Chu Wanning's beautiful eyes gazed at me silently. The expression on her face seemed to say that this threat held no weight at all. I spoke up leisurely. "Seems like you want my dad to know about this too. Knowing what you did on the 30th. Upon hearing that, her small face immediately turned frantic. She instantly grabbed the 500 yuan. I smiled and continued. "Since your hours are short, your salary is also the lowest. Just 500 yuan a month. If you do well, maybe I'll give you a raise." At this point, I leaned forward, interlocked my fingers, and looked at the pure girl before me. If you can find a suitable way to please the boss, then that raise can easily be discussed. Hearing those words, the tips of Chu Wanning's ears instantly turned beet red. She raised her other hand, clutching the 500 yuan tightly to her chest. Her expression was slightly anxious, along with a mix of shyness and frustration. She knew I was teasing her, but feared my words might actually have another meaning. "What are you thinking?" I stood up and sat on the counter. I couldn't help but reach out and pat her head. "I meant I want you to smile a bit more. That's one way to please the boss too. Got it? And also about helping me with tutoring." Chu Wanning immediately looked up at me. Her tone was incredibly serious. "I will definitely help you with tutoring. Obviously, that was your mission in the first place. Remember to come to my house this Saturday. If you're nowhere to be found." I playfully held up monster hands in front of the girl, deliberately trying to scare her. Chu Wanning's ears flushed bright red. She bit her lip and said nothing. Sitting on the counter, I pointed at the 500 yuan she was clutching. "By the way, how do you plan to spend the first money you've earned?" Chu Wanning snapped out of it, hurriedly reaching out both hands toward me, holding out a 100 yuan bill. "Here, to pay you back." That's not what I meant. But I still reached out and took the money. After putting the money away, I noticed the girl's cheeks were flushed pink, looking very hesitant, as if she wanted to say something. "What is it?" Chu Wanning murmured in a tiny voice. "Please give me back 13 yuan and 5 cents in change." I was stunned. Then I burst out laughing. "Right, I almost forgot to give you your change. Here's your 13.5 yuan. Chu Wanning lowered her head. Embarrassed, she bit her lip. I took out the small change. Chu Wanning reached out with both hands to receive it. I teased her again. "Don't you need to recount it?" Chu Wanning immediately shook her head. Her smooth, fair face was now as red as a tomato. I asked further, "What about the rest of the money? What are you going to do with it?" Back in 2015, for a high school student, holding 400 yuan was considered a small fortune. Chu Wanning said seriously, 100 yuan to top up my meal card. 100 yuan for practice workbooks. She stopped there. It seems she didn't plan to spend the rest yet, or simply hadn't thought of what to do with it. I reminded her, and 50 yuan for the class uniform. Chu Wanning looked up at me, looking startled for a moment. Then she shook her head. "And not buying the class uniform." I leaned both hands on the counter and looked up at the ceiling and said slowly, "True, it's just for the sports meet parade. Having to buy an extra set of clothes is annoying. But Chu Wanning, we only have our youth once. Maybe in 10 years you'll regret not studying harder, and you'll regret not wearing a beautiful outfit to join the final sports meet of our high school years." Having said that, I looked down at the delicate girl. Chu Wanning lowered her gaze seeming to be in deep thought. Seeing her hesitation, what I felt wasn't helplessness, but heartache. It's only 50 yuan, yet she acted as if she were choosing between life and death. I suggested, how about this? Buy it first, wait until the sports meet is over, then sell the worn outfit to me at a 20% discount. Chu Wanning looked at me with confusion, and I instructed her seriously. 8. It must be the original version. Later that evening, after returning home, I saw my parents sitting in the living room, looking at me with very subtle expressions. Clearly, my dad had told my mom everything about today. I shrugged, walked to the water dispenser, and poured a glass of water. While I was drinking, I suddenly saw my sister's door crack open a bit. Gu Miaoyun was inside, waving me over. "Brother," she called, and I stepped into Gu Miaoyun's room. The little girl immediately pulled me down on the bed, and I asked, "What's up?" Gu Miaoyun clung to my arm and rested her small head on my shoulder. "Brother, dear brother, you're the person who's best to me, right? In my past life, I probably would have had goosebumps all over, but after being reborn, I could only marvel that compared to the annoying sister she'd grow up to be, Gu Miaoyun in her lolly stage was much cuter, so my little sister's acting cute like this actually felt quite nice. Just tell me what it is." Gu Miaoyun bit her lip and spoke shyly. "Brother, could you go to my parent-teacher meeting tomorrow afternoon?" My expression shifted. I pinched her cheek, tilted her face up, and asked, "What exactly happened?" Gu Miaoyun pouted and finally spoke. "I lied to Mom and Dad. I didn't make the top 20 in the last final exams. If Mom finds out, she'll spank my butt until it's raw. In this house, my dad handles me, and my mom handles Gu Miaoyun. The division of labor is very clear." I tapped her on the head and said, "But I have classes too. Just skip it once. You used to skip all the time anyway." Gu Miaoyun pouted her lips and blinked her big eyes, acting pitiful. "Brother, could you really bear to see your sister's butt turn into a flower?" "All right. But there's no next time. Your brother is truly planning to study hard this time. I have a mission to complete too." "Awesome, brother, you're the best." Gu Miaoyun happily rubbed her head against my arm, exactly like a clingy little kitten. I smiled helplessly. In this house, lying about grades is no different from reporting false intel on a battlefield. That's why I'm always honest. If I'm last, I just admit I'm last. During break the next day, I saw Chu Wanning walk toward class president Wang Mingwu with 100 yuan. She approached him. After giving him her size, she took the 50 yuan change and walked back. Song Xinyao turned her head to look, with an incredibly suspicious expression. Chu Wanning is actually joining the sports meet parade this time. In that case, will the girl leading with the class sign be changed? Song Xinyao turned back, nodding her brows in worry, since she was always the one who held the sign for the class. Back then, Song Xinyao looked absolutely radiant walking at the front. Her personality made her particularly enjoy being the center of attention. But once Chu Wanning joined the parade, in terms of both looks and academics, she stood absolutely no chance against Chu Wanning. Back at the seat, while I was reading, Chu Wanning suddenly whispered, "In not selling it." Having said that, her ears turned red as she turned her face away. She propped up her book to hide her delicate profile. I smiled softly and continued reading. During the second period of the afternoon, Chu Wanning noticed her deskmate still hadn't shown up. Clearly, he had skipped class. I took off my school uniform and threw on a hoodie. Walking toward the gate of Lincheng High School, stopped by a convenience store to buy 2 lollipops, then headed toward the school entrance. Gu Miaoyun told me to just wait at the gate first. She'd come out to get me when it was time. Perfect timing to have a chat with the man in the overalls. I went over and sat by the green belt, handing him a lollipop. As I unwrapped one for myself, the man in overalls happily accepted the candy. "Thanks," he said, and after turning around, he seemed to freeze for a moment. Then he cried out in surprise, "Little Monk!" I broke into a grin. Sure enough, it was the same old nickname he had for me. I've had a buzz cut since middle school, so the man in overalls always called me Little Monk. It's been over 2 years since we last met. I didn't expect him to still recognize me. I couldn't help but ask him, "How many years have you worked here? What exactly are you waiting for?" He replied in a very childlike tone, "Waiting for Wanning to finish school." Just then, an elderly voice spoke up from behind. "He's waiting for his daughter to finish school, but he keeps forgetting that his daughter is already in high school." I turned my head and saw an old janitor. "Sir, do you know him?" I sat there and began chatting with the old man.
The old janitor seemed to be free at the moment, so he sat down beside me. Of course I do. His family situation is very tragic. Don't be fooled by his dazed state now. Back in the 90s, he was a passionate big boss. He was very wealthy. Hearing that, I glanced at the man in overalls with surprise. The old man continued his story. Years ago, he was the director of a large company, managing hundreds of people under him. His wife back then was a ballet dancer, as beautiful as a movie star. Later, it seems someone set him up. The company went bankrupt. The whole family had to squeeze into a dilapidated rented room. At this point, the old man turned to me and gave a faint, bitter smile. But that weary smile was tinged with pity. He had a son and a daughter, a family of 4. They were truly poor, but they could still get by. Who would have thought that one day his wife would be diagnosed with leukemia? She struggled for a year before passing away. Hearing that, I fell silent. The old man continued the tale. After his wife died, this fellow just dragged his son and daughter along to survive. A few years passed. No one expected the heavens to be so unfair. His son was hit by a car one night, just days before the entrance exam. The boy thought he was fine, accepted 500 yuan in compensation from the driver, and just limped his way back home. The result was that he passed away that very night. 500 yuan in exchange for a human life. My breath felt as though it was about to stop. I silently turned my head to look at the man in overalls eating a lollipop. "Uncle, it's so yummy, so yummy." He smiled at me with such innocence. While waving the lollipop in one hand, he stomped his feet happily. I suddenly looked up and asked, "Isn't there still a daughter left, sir?" At this, he shook his head with a bitter smile. "The most pitiful one is his daughter. When the family went bankrupt, that child was only 3 years old. Since she was old enough to understand, she hasn't had a single good day after her brother passed away. Not long after, the father also became simple-minded. A young girl at such a tender age has to go to school while taking care of her father. And she takes such wonderful care of him. That child is truly 1 in a million." He gestured with his hand to indicate the girl's height. I couldn't help but say, "Sir, are you joking with me? How could anyone be this unlucky?" The janitor stood up and smiled at me upon hearing that. "You think I'm joking? That only proves you've lived a very happy life. Young man, I'm off now. I still have one more street left to sweep." Damn it, talked all that time and didn't even get a cigarette. The janitor muttered under his breath and left. I sat there in silence, looking again at the uncle in overalls beside me. That handsome man kept swaying his head like a child. "So yummy, it's really yummy. Lollipops are wonderful." I was silent for a long time, saying nothing. After sitting for a while, I walked toward the grocery store. I bought a large bag of bread to take back and placed it in the lap of the uncle in overalls. As I stood up, I saw Gu Miaoyun coming out of the school gate. She was waving and calling me. I took out a fake mustache, looked at my phone screen, and pasted it over my scar. By the time for evening self-study, I finally finished my role as a parent. Luckily, Gu Miaoyun's homeroom teacher didn't make things difficult for me. The parent-teacher meeting was a complete success. Conversely, the 8th grade dean almost recognized me. I didn't expect my sister's phrase, "not in the class top 20, meant being 20th from the bottom. No wonder she insisted on not telling our parents the truth this time. Returning to the classroom door, I saw Chu Wanning just as she was stepping out of the office. "Where did you go this afternoon? What were you doing at the office?" We looked at each other and asked almost in unison. This unexpected synchronicity made Chu Wanning lower her head in slight embarrassment. I smiled and replied, "I went to the parent-teacher meeting for my sister. And you? Why were you at the office?" Chu Wanning shook her head slightly. "It's nothing." After saying that, she walked into the classroom. I didn't ask anything else and followed silently behind. During evening self-study, while others were doing homework, I was purely reading the theory in the textbooks. After all the teachers had already given up on me. After finishing the entire compulsory math book 1, I closed the book. At the same time, I looked toward the underachievers in the back row. There are 53 people in the class. That means I have to surpass 18 people to reach the top 35. But I know well that making the class top 35 is far from my ultimate goal. I have absolute confidence in English. I even think my English could far outstrip everyone in the class. Maybe even Chu Wanning couldn't beat me. But I'm really not sure about the other subjects, especially the science subjects, math and physics. Putting the book down,
I left the classroom to go to the restroom. Upon returning, I suddenly found that Chu Wanning was gone. Her backpack wasn't there either. I pulled the person sitting in front and asked where Chu Wanning went. I don't know. She just took her bag and left. The teacher didn't even scold her. I looked up at the homeroom teacher, Chin Kui, and saw her standing on the podium, staring at me leisurely. She made a curved V sign with her right hand, first pointing at her eyes, then pointing straight at me from a distance. This woman is truly like a ghost. I pouted and lowered my head to continue reading. Evening self-study ended. I packed my bag and headed home. Song Xinyao seemed to have something to say to me, but I walked very fast. As soon as she looked up, I had already vanished. I cycled to the supermarket, parked in front, and went inside. My father looked at me inquisitively and asked, "Aren't your school hours the same as that girl's?" I was a bit surprised. "She's already here?" After saying that, I turned around and saw Chu Wanning immediately, carrying a broom and a trash bin toward me. Seeing me, Chu Wanning paused for a moment. Then, with a slightly awkward expression, she looked away. Then she looked at my father and called out, "Uncle, do the empty bottles need to be thrown away too?" My father hurriedly sat up, nodded and said, "Throw them out, just gather them and put them in the bin outside." It was clear my father's attitude toward her was much better today. Chu Wanning spoke up hesitantly, "But bottles can be sold for money." My father laughed and waved his hand. "Silly girl, how much money could these bring in? Just throw them away." I frowned and slammed my hand on the table in front of my father. "Waste is shameful. Every little bit counts. Don't you know that? Dad, find a sack to put the bottles in." In the latter part of the sentence, I gave Chu Wanning an order, and the young girl nodded happily, and immediately set to work. Suddenly getting scolded by his son, my father looked up with a dazed expression. "In this world, when it comes to wasting, who's more wasteful than you little rascal? And yet you're lecturing me." I didn't answer. Lowering my voice, I muttered, "She only gets 500 yuan a month. It's like slave labor." "In a supermarket this big, you're letting her clean all by herself," my father protested with an aggrieved look. "She was the one who volunteered to clean. It's not my fault." That sounded exactly like something that stubborn girl would do. I was speechless. My father looked at me with a teasing smile. "What's wrong? Are you feeling sorry for her now?" I looked up and gave my dad a glare. I didn't bother to argue. Then I put my bag on the checkout counter and walked toward the busy Chu Wanning. I grabbed her arm with one hand and dragged her into a hidden corner. Little did I know that my father was watching the whole scene on the surveillance monitor. He was munching on melon seeds while watching the camera feed with great interest. I cornered her against the wall. Then I questioned, "Did you go to the office just to ask the teacher to leave self-study early? And you even snuck out when I wasn't looking?" The young girl was speechless. She just kept her head down. Her small hands awkwardly clutched an empty water bottle. I snatched the empty bottle from her hands, while slamming my hand against the wall behind her. "Have you gone mute? Say something. Do you think working overtime like this will get you a raise? Let me tell you, that's never going to happen." Chu Wanning looked up at me and said aggrievedly, "I have no intention of asking for a raise. Self-study ends at 9. I can finish work by a little past 10. Working only 1 hour a day and receiving 500 yuan a month. That's already too much." My brain immediately stalled. I pointed my finger at Chu Wanning. "Do you know how much other people get paid?" Chu Wanning stared at me and shook her head. "I don't care how much they get, but mine is definitely more. Because you give so much. I have to work more." She looked me straight in the eye, showing no weakness. I was so frustrated my teeth itched. I truly couldn't break down her logic. I feel like if I have a daughter in the future, she'll definitely frustrate me to death. And I wouldn't have the heart to hit her. I took a deep breath and said, "Anyway, just don't let it affect your studies. Understand?" Seeing that I had backed down, Chu Wanning gave a radiant smile and nodded briskly. I looked away and said, "Go on." Chu Wanning immediately snatched the empty bottle from my hand. Her eyes were clearly full of joy. She ran off shyly, looking at her back. No matter how helpless I felt, I still smiled. Time passed and Friday arrived. When school let out after self-study that evening, Song Zinyo finally found an opportunity, blocking my path right at the classroom door. "Gu Xiaozi, tomorrow is Saturday. Wai Mingwu invited a few of us over to his house. I already said yes. You should come too." I answered impatiently. "Go home. Out of my way, damn it. I have to study tomorrow."
Suddenly getting scolded, Song Xinyao. Her eyes turned red, watching my retreating back. She sobbed loudly, "Study, my foot. Now you're even using studying as an excuse. You class loser. Gu Xiaozi, you'll never sit in the front row." I carried my bag and walked straight, not bothering to look back. Meanwhile, Wang Mingwu approached Song Xinyao and said sarcastically, "Don't mind him. Bad student will always be a bad student. He's simply not on our level. We have nothing in common." 10 o'clock at night. I locked the main door of the supermarket. When finished, I handed Chu Wanning a small note. "This is my address and apartment number. What time can you come over tomorrow?" Chu Wanning took it, glanced at it, and said, "Around 1 in the afternoon." I nodded, "Okay. I'll wait for you at home." Chu Wanning spoke up again, confirming once more, "Will there actually be someone home? Really, why would I lie to you?" In truth, I was lying. My sister and mother might be home in the morning. But in the afternoon, Gu Miaoyun has extra classes, and my mother has to work. But if I told her no one was home, Chu Wanning definitely wouldn't come. Anyway, once she's already there, and the door is locked, she won't be able to escape. Besides, it really is just for tutoring. I truly want to improve. Saturday passed quickly. Chu Wanning checked her watch again. They had agreed on 1 o'clock yesterday, so she had to leave her house after 12, arriving at the address on the paper. She looked up at the grand entrance of the apartment complex. For a moment, she felt a bit bewildered, not knowing how to get inside. She had never set foot in such a high-end neighborhood before. Seeing someone swipe their card and open the small side door, she hurriedly gripped her backpack straps, lowered her head, and guiltily followed close behind that person. The security guard in the booth was busy watching TV. Chu Wanning was afraid of being spotted, so she quickened her pace. On the other side, an alarm clock rang out. I woke up with a start in bed, checking the time. I exclaimed, "What the hell?" I jumped up and ran to the bathroom for a quick wash, then quickly grabbed a short-sleeved shirt to put on. Just as I finished dressing, the doorbell rang incessantly. I went to open the door, instinctively glancing at the clock in the living room. Exactly 1 o'clock. Truly precise to the minute. As the door opened, Chu Wanning was standing timidly right there. She seemed a bit shy. This was the first time in her life she had visited a boy's house. I smiled and asked her, "What are you standing there for? Come on in." I hurried to the kitchen to rinse 2 glasses. Chu Wanning stood at the door and asked softly, "Do I need to take off my shoes?" Holding the glasses, I returned to the living room toward the water dispenser. "Just make yourself at home. See how comfortable I am barefoot." Chu Wanning took a glance at my barefoot state. She also began to lean down and untie her laces, carrying 2 cups of water for her. I looked at Chu Wanning and said, "Let's go." Chu Wanning quickly stepped closer, awkwardly looked at me and said, "Maybe I should greet your father and mother first, and then we can start studying." I paused for a moment, then said with a serious expression, "Actually, there's no one home. Right now it's just the 2 of us." Chu Wanning's beautiful eyes slowly widened. "You lied to me." I sighed helplessly. I had no choice. There really were people home this morning. "But you insisted on coming in the afternoon," Chu Wanning said with a hint of resentment, looking at me. "But my father needs to eat lunch." I shrugged helplessly. "Well, nothing I can do about that." Despite being angry, Chu Wanning didn't turn around to leave, just her earlobes turning red, her small lips pursed, looking like a sulking pufferfish. She stood in silence for a long time, before finally compromising and saying, "Let's begin." I pinched her cheek and said, "You're really cute when you're angry." Flustered, Chu Wanning swung her hand to hit my arm, but I shamelessly dodged it. This made her eyes even more resentful. After opening the bedroom door, Chu Wanning's expression was clearly odd. I placed the water glass on the desk, then turned around and asked, "Is there a strange smell in the room?" Chu Wanning gritted her teeth and shook her head no. I suddenly acted indignant, saying, "Right? You see there's no smell either. Yet my mom and sister keep insisting that my room is stinky." This made Chu Wanning unable to stop herself from smiling. Seeing her smile, I smiled too and continued, "They're really making a mountain out of a molehill. How could my room possibly smell?" Chu Wanning stepped a bit further inside. Her fair foot accidentally bumped into the trash can. She quickly pulled her foot back. Seeing this, I ran over to help her move it and explained further. "Don't misunderstand. Those tissues in the bin were just for blowing my nose." Chu Wanning looked up blankly and asked, "Misunderstand what?" I burst out laughing and replied, "Thing. Anyway, the main goal today is to study. Besides, there isn't much time this afternoon." I pulled up 2 chairs and sat by the desk.
It looked as if we were desk mates again. But because there was only one desk, the distance between us was much closer than at school. I could smell a faint fragrance on Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning wears her uniform all year, yet she always smells fresh. I wonder if she washes her uniform every single day, because I've never seen her clothes dirty. I pulled out my math exercise book. It was covered in bright red X marks. I've circled the ones I didn't understand. Could you explain them to me? Let's start with this one, okay? Chu Wanning only needed one glance to immediately figure out the solution. She patiently used a red pen to write the steps on the side, while gently explaining it to me. I nodded repeatedly, then picked up the water cup on the desk to drink. Chu Wanning took a look, and noted carefully. The cup I was holding was the one on the right. 5 minutes later, Chu Wanning asked again, "Do you understand?" I nodded and replied, "I really get it this time." Only then did Chu Wanning give a smile. She looked at the two cups on the desk and realized their left-right positions had changed to front-back. At that moment, my head was down, completely focused on the exercise. It was clearly an accidental action. She followed her memory and picked one up to drink. I handed over the worksheet and said, "This is correct, right?" Chu Wanning used both hands to hold the cup, leaned her pretty face forward, and nodded in confirmation, "Yes. This girl uses both hands for everything, even drinking water. She just has to hold the cup with both hands." I thought to myself that it was funny, but very cute. But suddenly my expression changed. Chu Wanning. Wait, I just drank from that cup. Hearing this, Chu Wanning spat a mouthful of water straight into my face. I squeezed my eyes shut. A moment later, I slowly opened my eyes in utter helplessness, taking a glance downward as well. I found even the thighs of my pants were soaked. I couldn't help but look up and comment, "Were you a showerhead in your past life? How did you spray such a wide area?" Chu Wanning was both flustered and embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she said, hurriedly standing up, pulling several tissues from the desk in quick succession. She cautiously approached me, using the tissues to gently wipe my face. I couldn't help but mutter again, "So what if you accidentally drank from my cup? No need to be so disgusted that you react like that." Chu Wanning's face turned bright red. She shook her head vigorously. "It's not that, I just, she stammered for a long time. Still unable to come up with a decent reason, even her earlobes were turning deeper red. After finishing wiping the water off my face, Chu Wanning hurriedly pulled out more tissues, following my collar down to wipe further. When she was about to wipe the middle of my pants, I immediately jumped up. "Good heavens, where are you planning to wipe?" Chu Wanning's small hand paused for a beat as she realized. She pulled her hand back as if struck by lightning. "I'm sorry. This part. Do this part yourself. I really didn't touch that part of yours just now," she tried to explain with a very serious face. "That part of mine?" I casually wiped it a few times with the tissue. When I looked up, I realized Chu Wanning had long since turned away, standing stiffly facing the wall as if being punished. I threw the pile of tissues into the bin. Only then did Chu Wanning dare to sit back down, then used both hands to hold the cup she had mistakenly used, handed it back to me, whispering with her head held low. I looked at her with total helplessness. "This is the one you just spat into, and now you're giving it back. To me. Are you trying to make me drink your saliva?" Chu Wanning's small face went blank for a moment. Then she hurriedly pulled the cup back immediately and pushed the other cup on the desk toward me. Her eyes secretly peeked at my reaction, then shyly withdrew her gaze right after. While I was wiping my hair with a paper towel, I observed her disappointed expression. I feel like Chu Wanning is always so cautious whenever she faces me. Is it just because I'm holding on to her secret? I was busy searching for the reason, and suddenly remembered the voting slip from that day. I couldn't help but speak up and ask, "Chu Wanning, did the two of us know each other before?" Chu Wanning kept her head down and silently shook it. I looked at her inquisitively. "Really, we didn't know each other?" Chu Wanning continued to shake her head. "Fine. It's nothing. Let's get back to studying." I waved my hand as a signal. Chu Wanning turned back to face me and continued the explanation from right where she left off. It took nearly an hour to finish 2 chapters of exercises. My head suddenly felt a bit dizzy. I couldn't help but shake my head to wake up, then rubbed my tired eyes with my hand. As expected, science subjects are my mortal enemies. I opened my bag and started pulling out the physics workbook. Just then, the sole of my foot touched something soft and smooth. I curiously leaned down to take a look, and saw Chu Wanning hurriedly pulling back her small, fair foot, then using her other foot to hide the 10 toes I had just stepped on. Those pretty rosy toes.
simultaneously curled up. I looked up at her. Chu Wanning looked as if nothing had happened. She was focusing on the exercises. These circled parts are all the things I don't understand.
Take a look first. I'll go get some fruit. I placed the workbook in front of her. Then I stood up and left. A moment later, I returned with a fruit plate. There were several types of fruit on the plate. There are snacks too, help yourself. Chu Wanning shook her head. Sit down first. I'm going to start explaining now. While I picked up a tangerine and started peeling it, I listened to Chu Wanning's lecture. After peeling half of it, I popped a piece into my mouth. Then I held the other half to Chu Wanning's lips. Chu Wanning pursed her lips and her voice suddenly went silent. In a commanding tone, I said seriously, eat. Chu Wanning glanced up at me. She opened her small pink mouth and bit one end of the tangerine slice.
Then she swallowed it. I laughed happily. Keep explaining. Chu Wanning blushed. Because the acceleration here is constant. I interrupted her. Hasn't the acceleration changed here? Chu Wanning was stunned. Her face turned bright red as she quickly corrected herself. Right. It changed. I couldn't help laughing. You only ate half a tangerine. How did your knowledge just vanish like that? Chu Wanning said indignantly. It's because you interrupted me. I laughed and shook my head. I held another tangerine slice to her lips. Chu Wanning stubbornly turned away, refusing to eat. I teased her by moving it back to her mouth. Chu Wanning still kept her head turned away. My voice rose a bit. You're not going to listen. You're getting bold, aren't you? Believe it or not, ill. Chu Wanning turned her head back. She gave me a glare. Then opened her mouth and bit the tangerine slice and swallowed it whole. I was thrilled. This trick works every single time. Chu Wanning suddenly stood up and started packing her things. You're not studying properly. I'm going home. I quickly pulled her back. Don't, please don't. I won't tease you anymore. At dusk, the tutoring session ended. Chu Wanning put on her backpack and walked to the door. I called her back again. Wait, I pulled out a large shopping bag. I put all the milk, fruit, and snacks in the house into it. Then I handed it to her. Chu Wanning stepped back in surprise, quickly hiding her hands behind her back. I'm not taking it, I replied righteously. It's your tuition fee. Chu Wanning shook her head, saying, I won't take it. Then she put on her shoes and hurried out the door. I placed the bag right outside. Then help me throw this bag away. Chu Wanning was about to speak, but the door slammed shut with a thud. I watched through the peephole. Chu Wanning stood dazed in front of the door for a while. She stepped closer, staring intently at the door. I instinctively moved away from the peephole. A moment later, I looked again and saw that Chu Wanning had left. I thought Chu Wanning had taken the bag with her. Who would have thought that when I opened the door? I saw the bag still sitting neatly right in front of the door. I could only shake my head and sigh. This girl really is stubborn. Monday morning self-study session. The head teacher Chin Gui went up to the podium to announce two things. The first thing. The grade director feels that our class sports meet uniform, the girls' skirts are a bit too short. All the boys in the class gasped in surprise. The teacher continued. Don't worry. This is the last sports meet of high school anyway. The grade director has made a slight concession. Only that the girls are not allowed to have bare legs, but need to buy thigh-high socks to wear with them. As soon as she finished, the whole class went dead silent. Sorry, Teacher Chin Gui. I admit my voice was a bit too loud just now. Turns out he also likes to watch. Absolute territory. Wang Mingyu spoke up. Each girl needs to give me an extra 5 yuan. At this moment, the teacher continued. I just looked over the class uniform purchase list. This time, the person holding the class sign for the parade will be Chu Wanning. Hearing this, Song Xinyao's head snapped up in surprise. Hearing that, the class president Wang Mingyu suggested, Teacher, shouldn't we let the whole class vote on this? Chin Gui immediately and flatly rejected it. No need. Song Xinyao slumped onto her desk in disappointment, her hands squeezed tight, wrinkling the book page. Sitting in the back row, I raised both hands and clapped loudly, cheering. I agree. I totally agree. Chu Wanning was bewildered. She didn't expect the task of holding the sign to fall on her. This made her extremely anxious. The teacher tapped on the podium. The second thing. As soon as the sports meet ends, monthly exams will start the very next day. The whole class, which was just full of energy, suddenly became as gloomy as a funeral. As usual, there are 30 exam rooms in total. Seating will be arranged according to the previous final exam results. The teacher said while leaning on the podium, looking as stern as Yama. Her gaze swept across the back of the classroom. Then she declared in a serious tone,
The first major exam of 12th grade, everyone must take it seriously for me. There will definitely be a parent-teacher meeting after the exam. You lot sitting in the back. Don't make me embarrass your parents at the meeting. Got it? I let out a soft snort of disdain. The teacher's eyes immediately locked onto me. You're not satisfied? I gave an extremely obedient smile. Not at all. Xingui gave a cold laugh. Don't you dare be dissatisfied. Let me tell you, at the last semester's parent-teacher meeting, your dad was so angry he snatched my ruler and dashed out of the classroom to beat you. Do you still remember? The class immediately burst into laughter. I was a bit dazed. It's true I can't remember being treated like that. But that definitely sounds like my old man's style. She slapped the table, demanding order. She said with a heartfelt tone, Gu Shaozi, please have a little heart. I don't need you to raise class 28's average, but at least think about not embarrassing your father like that anymore. If you get out of the bottom 10 in this exam, then you're truly number 1. The teacher gave me a thumbs up. After speaking, she walked out of the classroom, leaving behind 4 cold words. Start morning reading. The sound of reading quickly echoed throughout the room. But no matter how loud the noise was, that Monday night, the news of Chu Wanning being chosen as the sign-bearer for class 28 spread like a plague throughout the girls' dormitories, compared to the boys. Chu Wanning's reputation among the girls was much more resounding. For the boys, the more prominent, the more outgoing, only girls with sparkling looks would catch their attention. A type of girl who was extremely low-key like Chu Wanning. There might be many who had never even heard her name, let alone met her. But girls are different. The sisterhood is inherently the center of gossip. Whether rebellious or quiet, they don't escape their gaze. Especially someone as otherworldly beautiful as Chu Wanning, whose strange personality was always a hot topic. She was practically the most discussed keyword. Physical education class the next afternoon. The physical education rep Zhang Hao came up to me with a notebook. Gu Shaozi. How many events are you participating in for the sports meet? I answered with a face that had nothing left to lose. 5. High jump, long jump, shot put, 800 meter, and 3,000 meter. The head teacher decided everything herself. She said for the class's honor, if you're bad at studying, you must contribute to the class in other ways. So she just finalized it. Registered for all 5 events. Zhang Hao looked at me with sympathetic eyes, then said, all right, I've got it down. Go over there and practice the high jump first. I looked in the direction he pointed. The high jump equipment was already set up. I strolled toward it. On the steps above, Chu Wanning finally decided to put down her book. Looking up at my receding back, it was time for someone tall like me to jump. I crouched slightly and began to accelerate. When I reached the crossbar, I leaped with all my might. The height of the jump even stunned the gym teacher standing nearby. This is a benefit of reincarnation. My physical strength has increased significantly. My jumping ability was clearly proven by last week's dunk. But not cool for more than a second. My cargo pants suddenly got caught on the bars pole. Oh crap. Chu Wanning, watching from the steps, felt her heart skip a beat. She almost stood up, but immediately after, she burst out laughing, quickly using her book to cover the lower half of her face. My whole body fell into a handstand position, falling onto the foam mat, with both legs pointing straight up at the sky, just because my pocket was stuck on the pole. A few people rushed over to rescue me. The gym teacher Wang Ping said with a smile, Hey Gu Shaozi, your jumping power is pretty top-notch. I feel like raising the bar another half meter wouldn't be a problem. I curled my lips in a bitter smile, looking at my pants which had a big rip. Hold on, let me take these pants off. Li Yu immediately shouted at the top of his lungs. Everyone, come look. Gu Shaozi is about to strip. Song Xinyao's gaze was also drawn to this. Chu Wanning, sitting on the steps, secretly used her book to cover her eyes. I laughed and shook my head smugly. Hey, didn't expect that, did you? I'm wearing a huge pair of shorts underneath. Saying that, I made a goofy face and pulled off the long pants, revealing the shorts inside. Li Yu immediately felt disappointed, looking at the torn pants in my hand. I almost didn't even think. Walked straight to the trash can under the tree and threw them right in. Seemingly sensing a gaze from the steps, I turned around to look toward Chu Wanning, then laughed loudly and left. Chu Wanning shyly covered her face with the book. Her beautiful eyes flickered slightly, looking like she was deep in thought. Near the end of the lesson, I took the basketball and headed to the court with Zheng Feng. Just as I looked up, I suddenly froze in shock. On the steps, a girl was sneakily approaching Chu Wanning from behind. Chu Wanning was engrossed in her book,
completely unaware that someone was approaching her, and her 2 hands were already raised to perform a pushing motion. Damn it. I suddenly let out a roar, swung the basketball in my hand with force, throwing it directly at the girl. The ball zipped through the air, hitting her square in the shoulder, knocking her to the ground. Then I lunged up the steps as fast as a panther. Chu Wanning stood up with a start. Quickly clutching her book, she turned around, staring in astonishment at the scene before her. I gave her a look. Someone is approaching from behind.
And you didn't feel anything.
Chu Wanning stepped back, a bit dazed. Behind her, the girl was sitting on the ground, her face contorted in pain as she held her injured shoulder. Chu Wanning recognized her as an old classmate from 10th grade before the class split, the same one who used to lead the bullying against her. I walked straight up and delivered a thunderous slap to her face. She was slapped so hard that her tears began to flow uncontrollably. She looked at me with eyes full of fear. I pointed my hand at her face. My gaze was incredibly fierce. Which class? What's your name? This scene quickly attracted a crowd on the school grounds. All of class 28 rushed over. Including the gym teacher, a group of people surrounded the 3 of us. The gym teacher spoke sternly. Gu Xiaoze, what on earth are you doing? I didn't bother paying attention to him, but turned to look at the crowd, then locked onto classmate Sun Hongyan. Get over here. Sun Hongyan stepped out timidly. Then she heard me press her. Is it this girl? The one who pushed Chu Wanning down the stairs last time. Sun Hongyan nodded. Yes, it's her. The gym teacher looked at the girl in shock. His face also tightened with seriousness. I gave a sarcastic laugh. So it really was you? You're delivering yourself to your death this time, right? What's your name? I asked which class, but that short-haired girl remained as silent as a stone, even though her tears were streaming down.
Her eyes were glaring at me with deep resentment. Why should I show any respect to someone like her? And delivered another slap to her. Didn't your mother teach you how to open your mouth and speak? The gym teacher began to find it eyesore. He shouted loudly, Gu Xiaoze, calm down for a moment. Hit her again and things will take a different direction. I turned my head and shot back. Which direction is different? The steps are this high. She was just trying to push her down. Last time she fell and only sprained her ankle. But what if she hits her head on the ground this time? What then? Tell me, teacher, what are we supposed to do now? This is attempted murder. Me slapping her like this is already way too light. The gym teacher was silenced by my words. He also turned to look at the short-haired girl and asked in a stern voice, which class are you in? Why did you do that? To Chu Wanning. At this moment, Li Yu spoke up. Looks like she's in class 15. What's her name? I've forgotten. I gave a cold laugh, grabbed the short-haired girl by the collar, pushing the crowd aside, and angrily led her off in one direction. The gym teacher called after us, Gu Xiaoze, where are you taking that girl? I didn't even turn my head and shouted back. Grade director's office. It's over, everyone disperse. School's out. The gym teacher looked at the students gathered around to watch the gossip. He called out loudly to the people involved. Chu Wanning, Sun Hongyan, you two come with me. Sun Hongyan muttered her obedience. Chu Wanning still seemed to be in a daze. Her eyes were still blankly staring in the direction I had just gone. Chu Wanning, the gym teacher called out once more. He walked up to the young girl. Only then did he discover that the pure, beautiful girl had burst into tears. Tears were pouring down like a broken dam. There was no way to stop them. The gym teacher tapped her lightly on the shoulder, consoling her. It's okay. I will get justice for you. Both your classmate, me, and Sun Hongyan can testify. Chu Wanning wiped away her tears and quietly nodded. She hurriedly followed behind the gym teacher. I kicked open the grade director's office door. The loud noise made old Ji Rishin, who was sitting inside drinking tea, shake his hand violently, splashing tea leaves all over his face. When he saw it was me, old Ji slammed the table in anger. Gu Xiaoze, what on earth are you trying to do again? I threw the short-haired girl I was clutching in my hand forward. She fell flat on her face on the ground. I brushed off my hands, showing the true face of a real villain. Old Ji was a bit stunned. He looked up. What's going on? Is committing a mistake right in front of me more exciting for you? I asked blankly. Teacher, how is attempted murder punished? Old Ji was stunned once again. Then he saw the gym teacher enter with the two girls. When I turned around and saw Chu Wanning's tear-stained face, my eyebrows furrowed even tighter. I went to the desk nearby, pulled out a few tissues, and stuffed them into her hand. When the loudspeaker for the evening self-study session sounded, grade director Ji Rishin's voice reached all the classrooms.
I have an announcement to make. Student Shu Yan of class 1215 has repeatedly and intentionally injured fellow students. Her attitude is extremely obstinate. The school has notified her parents and decided to expel her. I sat in my seat, listening intently to the announcement. After finishing with Shu Yan's matter, Old Ji's voice continued. Next, I would like to commend a student. It's quite a surprise. This student used to be frequently called out for criticism. Unexpectedly, he has now repented and turned his life around. The whole class simultaneously turned toward the back row, with expressions that were utterly indescribable. Today, this fellow student bravely stopped a serious incident of violence. That student is Gu Xiao's of class 1228. School-wide commendation. At this moment, Chu Wanning was buried in her homework. I didn't disturb her, and just continued reading my own book, sensing that I had looked away. Chu Wanning's pen suddenly paused, her lips parted slightly, as if she were about to turn and say something, but finally stopped herself. The following evening, I watched Chu Wanning, who was busy in the supermarket, feeling a bit strange. Her bully had been punished. She should have been feeling happy, but she seemed even more withdrawn than before. Waiting until 10 o'clock at night when the supermarket closed, I locked the door as usual, but Chu Wanning, standing beside me, still hadn't left. Let's go home. Be careful on the road. Chu Wanning stood there quietly for a moment, then pulled her backpack to her chest, and took out a pair of pants that were folded very neatly. I've sewn them back together. Chu Wanning held the pants up and handed them to me. I blankly took them to look. Weren't these the pants I threw in the trash yesterday? I smiled in surprise and looked up at her. I was just about to say thank you when I saw Chu Wanning, looking at me with eyes that were already rimmed with red. Gu Xiaoze, thank you. But next time, don't be so impulsive. Especially, don't almost get punished because of me. After speaking, she tried to hold back her tears and hurried to turn around and run away. That small, slender figure quickly vanished into the silent night. I stood there silently for a long time. Only then did I let out a heavy sigh, lowered my head and lightly sniffed the pants. It turns out Chu Wanning had washed them for me. They gave off a faint, gentle scent of laundry detergent. Chu Wanning, if only I had known you sooner in my previous life. I looked at the pants and whispered to myself. A week later, during the morning break, the class president Wang Mingyu suddenly ran into the classroom. He slapped his hand on the door. Boys, come help out. The class uniforms are here. Let's go carry the stuff in. As soon as he spoke, the atmosphere suddenly froze. Immediately after, the whole class seemed to explode with excitement. I withdrew my gaze and turned to look at my deskmate. Chu Wanning also happened to look away at that moment. The two of us suddenly caught each other's eyes for a second, then quickly turned away again. It seemed an invisible barrier had appeared between us. Ever since that night, she cried and said those things to me. Chu Wanning started proactively keeping her distance from me from the next day. Of course, I understood this girl's sensitive personality well. She was just always afraid of becoming a burden. To those who were kind to her, she was even more afraid of causing them trouble. But what am I afraid of? Someone who's been reincarnated like me has nothing to fear. I took a deep breath, gripping the pen tightly in my hand. At this moment, I was calculating something else in my heart. It was only a few days until Chu Wanning's birthday. I had been obsessing over it. What gift should I give this girl? I don't even need to think to know. The last time this girl celebrated her birthday must have been ages ago, let alone receiving a birthday gift. At that moment, there was a sudden noise at the classroom door. A few boys had just brought back the class uniforms. Wang Mingyu placed a large bundle on the teacher's podium. Everyone, come up and get your uniforms according to your size. Make sure you don't take the wrong one. I turned my head to look at Chu Wanning. What size do you wear? Let me get it for you. Chu Wanning shook her head slightly. She refused and stood up, walking there herself. I called out after her from behind, then please get me a size 3XL. Just a moment later, Chu Wanning walked back to her seat with two uniforms. At this time, two girls in the row ahead were gossiping. What shoes should go with high socks? White sneakers. Regular sports shoes are fine, but black leather shoes fit best. Ah, but I don't have black leather shoes. I heard it all. I knew Chu Wanning definitely didn't have black leather shoes either. In my memory, Chu Wanning only ever wore canvas shoes. So, there's the birthday gift. But immediately after, a serious problem arose. What size are Chu Wanning's feet? I can't just ask her directly. This is supposed to be a surprise for her. If I ask directly, then it won't be a surprise anymore. After the evening self-study session ended, Chu Wanning was standing in the fresh food section, arranging the frozen meat in the cardboard boxes. I was carrying a glass of water, sneaking around behind her like a thief. Approaching the spot where Fatty was chopping meat, Seeing the young master coming, he was about to say hello, when he suddenly saw me making a shushing gesture. Fatty obediently kept his mouth shut, glancing at Chu Wanning. He knew she was my target. I crept up behind Chu Wanning, pretending to accidentally tilt the glass of water, spilling all the water inside onto her canvas shoes. Done. I pretended to panic and shouted, "I'm so sorry." Chu Wanning was startled. She quickly pulled her feet back, looking at me in surprise. As for me, I quickly squatted down and untied her shoelaces. "Hurry up and take them off. Take them off quickly. Your feet. What if your feet get cold? Let me go dry your shoes for you. No need to thank me." Chu Wanning pushed me in a panic. "What are you doing?" I didn't care. I quickly stripped the shoe off her foot, held it in my hand and bolted straight out, watching my back as I ran for my life. Chu Wanning leaned one hand against the fridge, lifting one foot up. White sock. Her small foot dangled in the air. She was completely dazed, frozen in shock. Fatty the butcher cleared his throat. Looking awkward, he scratched his head. Laughing, he said, "Our young master has always been very enthusiastic." Chu Wanning was speechless. She clearly felt that I did it on purpose. Chu Wanning chased after me. I held the shoe, shouting as I rushed out of the supermarket. This scene made the boss sitting at the checkout counter stare in disbelief. I went to the supermarket entrance. Under the light, I pulled the shoe open and looked inside. But my smile immediately froze. The shoe size had faded long ago. It makes sense. These shoes were definitely bought a long time ago. The size printed on them. It would be strange if it were still clear. I returned to the checkout counter, leaning against the corner with an expressionless face, holding the hairdryer to blow on the shoe. Turning around, I saw my father staring at me. I casually asked, "Dad, can you tell what size this shoe is?" My father took a glance. Under 40. I was speechless. That's obvious. After drying it, I took the shoe back to the fresh meat section. Chu Wanning was leaning against the fridge, sitting on a small stool. It must have been kindly provided by Fatty. Seeing that I had returned, she quickly stood up. "It's dry now. Dried it for you. I'm really sorry. I accidentally got your shoe wet." Chu Wanning looked at me with a strange look, reaching out to take back her shoe, but I didn't give it to her. I stared at her foot in the white sock. My brows furrowed deeply, speaking in a very mysterious tone. "Your foot is not ordinary at all." A customer asked Fatty to chop meat, but he didn't even care. He was very curious, wondering what trick the young master was up to. Chu Wanning immediately looked at me with vigilance. "What are you going to do?" I clicked my tongue twice, then said, "I won't hide it from you. I've recently learned palmistry. Thinking about it, foot reading should follow the same principle." Shameful and angry, Chu Wanning shouted, "Are you going to strip off my sock too?" I sat down and placed the shoe aside. "I can read it without taking it off." I forcefully pulled Chu Wanning's foot toward me. Using my thumb and index finger to measure the size of her foot, Chu Wanning was both flustered and embarrassed. Trying to pull her foot back, for the first time, she understood the feeling of the thigh losing to the arm. Measurement finished. I returned the shoe to her. After leaving a comment, I walked away triumphantly. "I've finished reading it. You have the fate of bringing prosperity to your husband. Just be happy about it." Chu Wanning's ears turned red, glaring at my back. Resentfully, she bowed her head and put her shoe on. After arriving home, to avoid forgetting the size, I threw my bag aside and rushed into my sister's room. Gu Miaoyun was sitting cross-legged on the bed reading comics. Seeing someone enter, she panicked and quickly hid the comic. Relieved when she realized it was her brother, she asked annoyedly, "What are you doing?" I hurried over. "What size are your feet?" 35. Gu Miaoyun was wondering why her brother asked this, when she screamed in the next second. I lifted one of her feet with one hand, bringing my sister's fair soul close to my eyes, and started measuring with my fingers. "Ah, Gu Shaozi, you're a pervert, a foot fetish pervert. Dad, save me." Suddenly, there was a noise outside the door. I turned and saw Dad rushing and holding a clothes hanger. "Gu Shaozi, have you gone crazy? She's your sister." Gu Miaoyun lay upside down on the bed. Her small face was crumpled, looking at Dad with a look of grievance. "Dad, please save me." I kept a calm face and muttered, "A bit bigger. Her foot size must be a 36. Having said that, I let go of Gu Miaoyun's foot, as if immersed in my own world, mumbling something under my breath. Under Dad's bewildered gaze, I calmly stepped out of my sister's room.
Dad, brother is a pervert. Gu Miaoyun sat down on the bed, looking at Dad resentfully. My father said with a serious face, "Don't worry, I'll beat him to death in a moment." In the living room, Dad looked at me in shock. What? You're going to give that girl leather shoes as a gift? I nodded seriously. That's right. Dad, please give me a hand the night after next. 2 days later, during evening self-study, because it had been sunny during the day. At this moment, the night outside the classroom window was filled with stars sparkling in the sky. It looked so peaceful and dreamlike. Chu Wanning stared blankly out the window, dreaming that in the night sky, 2 angels suddenly appeared and smiled at her. One was her mother. The other was her brother. Just like that, she gazed dazedly at the night sky. A long time later, Chu Wanning finally looked away. Bowing her head, she slowly wrote 7 words on a piece of scrap paper. Happy birthday. Chu Wanning looked at these 7 sharp and elegant words. She pursed her lips and smiled secretly, gently blowing a breath onto the paper, as if a candle were lit upon it. Chu Wanning was dazed for a few seconds. After snapping out of it, she quickly used a black ballpoint pen to cross out those words. She turned to look at the empty seat beside her. During tonight's self-study, Gu Xiao's had skipped class again. Chu Wanning took a deep breath, bowing her head to continue with today's homework. When the scheduled time came, she packed her bag and left the classroom. Classmates were used to her leaving at this hour. It was a special privilege the class teacher granted her. Chu Wanning walked alone on the night road, feeling the chilly night breeze. Last time. Her birthday was once celebrated in the hospital. That memory had faded now. She only remembered that her mother had lost all her hair then. Sitting on the bed in a blue and white striped hospital gown, but her eyes were still full of love, looking at her 5-year-old self, and clapping softly. Happy birthday, Wanning. Her 10-year-old brother brought a small cake over and placed it on the table. Dad had just returned from work, not yet changing out of his smelly work clothes. But that didn't affect his tenderness, gently placing each candle on the cake, lighting them up. Using his hands covered in bandages to stroke his daughter's head, make a wish. 5-year-old Wanning clasped her tiny hands together, speaking in a sweet, childish voice. I hope Mommy's hair grows back tomorrow. The little girl leaned against the bed frame, smiling so innocently. The woman with the gaunt face suddenly froze. Hearing those words, she burst into tears, aching as she stroked her daughter's hair. Choking back tears, she said, Silly girl, you shouldn't say your wish out loud. If you say it, it won't come true anymore. Chu Wanning walked alone through the night. She clasped her hands together, facing the stars in the sky, making a silent wish that only she could hear, because her mother had once told her that wishes shouldn't be spoken aloud. If spoken, they would no longer come true. That's right, her wish hadn't come true. Her mother's hair never grew back in the end. By the time little Wanning saved her lucky money to buy a wig for her mother had already passed away. Little Wanning still put the wig on her mother, because she knew her mother had always loved beauty. At this moment, the green light turned on. Chu Wanning crossed Wangjiang East Road, walking toward the Four Seasons fresh food supermarket. The moment she looked up at the supermarket entrance, she suddenly froze, as if she had just stepped into a parallel dimension. The entire supermarket was pitch black, but the main door of the supermarket was wide open. Chu Wanning quickened her pace, running straight toward the supermarket door. She placed her bag on the checkout counter, hesitantly calling out inside. Is anyone there? Is anyone in? The voice echoed throughout the silent supermarket. The inside of the supermarket was as dark as ink, but strangely, behind a certain shelf, there was a shimmering white light. Who's there? Chu Wanning asked loudly. Groping in the dark, she took a few steps inside. Suddenly, the supermarket door behind her slammed shut. Chu Wanning turned around quickly, looking at the scene before her in panic. While she was still gasping for breath, the white light in the darkness began to shimmer more brightly, like an angel appearing in the middle of the night. Stepping out from behind the shelf, at the same time a familiar, soulful singing voice rang out. Happy birthday to you. Someone like me, who suffers from nyctophobia, was covered in various gear. In a bizarre shape, I slowly emerged from behind the shelf, holding a large 2-tiered cake in my hands. The candlelight on the cake flickered, reflecting on my gently smiling face. Happy birthday. Then many other voices joined in. Behind me was Fatty from the fresh meat section, Fatty the butcher, Aunt Lee from the vegetable section, Sister Song from the candy section, and the one responsible for sneakily closing the door, my father, also appeared at the entrance.
He also smiled and clapped like everyone else, along with the staff working the night shift. Together they sang the birthday song, though their voices weren't quite in sync. Happy birthday to you. After singing, I stopped, standing at a distance, looking at Chu Wanning, who was dazed at the entrance. Happy 17th birthday. Chu Wanning. I tilted my head slightly, a bright smile on my lips. Chu Wanning stared blankly at me, smiling at her. Her tears just kept falling, uncontrollable, streaming down from the corners of her eyes to her cheeks. At this moment, Angel seemed to have manifested in the flesh.
And that was me right now. 17-year-old Chu Wanning whispered to herself. It turns out that wishes really must be made silently in the heart to come true. In the dark supermarket, flashlights and birthday candles shimmered. My father stepped forward from behind, gently placing a paper birthday hat on the girl's head. It looks great. Very beautiful, he commented with a smile, suddenly realizing Chu Wanning's shoulders were trembling. He walked around a bit to see, only to see that Chu Wanning's face was now drenched in tears. Are you that moved? My father was a bit surprised. The celebration his son designed was indeed very heartfelt. To coordinate with me, the supermarket had closed much earlier tonight, roughly losing a few thousand in revenue. But my father didn't mind. Even though Chu Wanning had only worked for him for half a month, but just the fact that this girl was willing to mend his son's pants was enough for my father to feel it was completely worth it. So he even sponsored this birthday plan with a very fancy 2-tiered fruitcake. This kid, trying to be so romantic, huh? What are you trying to do? Look, you've made her cry her eyes out. Hearing my father's playful scolding, Chu Wanning quickly turned around and shook her head, and quickly used her hands to wipe away the tears, as if trying to prove she wasn't crying at all. My father laughed at the girl's innocence. He handed her some tissues. I was just joking and not scolding him. It's just that on a happy day like this, seeing you cry like that, it makes me feel a bit sad for you. I didn't expect Chu Wanning to cry so much either. The more Chu Wanning cried, the more it showed she deeply remembered her birthday. I told her, make a wish. Chu Wanning stepped forward 2 paces. With a hesitant expression, she said, I've already made a wish. I didn't press her further, frankly saying, then blow out the candles. Once you blow them out, the wish will come true. Chu Wanning immediately nodded, running forward and taking a breath to blow. They didn't go out. She shyly looked up at me, just as she was about to blow again. My father called out from behind, You two blow them out together. I smiled at Chu Wanning. You don't mind if I join in on your wish, do you? Chu Wanning shook her head vigorously like a rattle drum. Both of us puffed out our cheeks close to the candles, blowing until the flames flickered back and forth, then went out in a puff of white smoke. The supermarket lights were turned on now. The surroundings became bright. That I spoke up. You elders should eat less sweets tonight. Just a few bites. Just to get a taste is enough. Rest, let our protagonist take home. Her family hasn't eaten any yet. Chu Wanning quickly waved her hands. It's too much, way too much. Please eat, everyone, please go ahead and eat. Her voice grew softer, because she could hardly imagine how much such a big and beautiful cake must have cost. I started slicing the cake, giving the first slice directly to Chu Wanning, taking the opportunity to dab a bit of cream on her high, straight nose bridge, seeing Chu Wanning with the white cream on her nose. Looking shy and blinking her eyes, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Eat up. What are you waiting for? Chu Wanning bowed her head and took small bites, feeling the sweet cream melting in her mouth, while whispering worriedly, How much did this cake cost? My father was just about to answer when I interrupted. It was free, the bakery is having a promotion. They said anyone who buys a cake on September 19th gets into a lucky draw. I just happened to draw one. Who knew I'd win this 2-tiered cake? Chu Wanning was extremely surprised after hearing that. So you can really get free gifts like this? She asked, Where is that bakery? I turned to look at her. You don't tell me you're planning to go there too. To try for the lucky draw for your birthday on the 20th. I forgot the name. I gave a random answer. My father, while eating cake, had a knowing smile on his lips, but he didn't expose me. We leaned against the checkout counter and chatted animatedly. The atmosphere was extremely harmonious. I turned and asked her, How's the taste? Chu Wanning was absorbed in licking the cream off her spoon, looking just like a little kitten. Seeing me turn to look, she quickly retracted her pale pink tongue. Bowing her head with blushing ears, she whispered, It's delicious. Then my father said, Wanning, go home early today. Yes, thank you, uncle. Chu Wanning replied with a smile. Under the quiet night sky, I carry a large portion of the leftover cake to walk.
Chu Wanning to the intersection. Take this back for your father to eat. I handed the cake box to Chu Wanning. After Chu Wanning took it, she saw I wasn't in a hurry to go back. Instead, she pulled my backpack forward. As she was about to pull the zipper, she suddenly stopped. I hurriedly pointed behind Chu Wanning. Goodness, what's that over there? Chu Wanning quickly turned her head to look, but saw nothing. She turned back in confusion, only to find a pair of shiny black, low-heeled leather shoes before her. Ta-da! Here's your birthday gift. I shook my legs smugly, feeling very pleased. Chu Wanning was dazed once again. She saw the size 36 clearly printed on the sole, and recalled my strange behavior in the supermarket a few days ago. The dim street lights cast a hazy glow around the two of us. My smile suddenly vanished. I hurriedly raised my hand. What's wrong? Crying again? I've really lost you. I used my thumb to wipe away the tears streaming down Chu Wanning's face. Are you made of tears? I asked, feeling both amused and helpless, but actually Chu Wanning rarely ever cried. Over all these years, it seemed a lifetime of tears had been shed in these past 2 weeks, all because of my unannounced appearance in her life. These, how much did they cost? Chu Wanning asked, choking up. She could barely speak. I waved my hand and said, just street vendor stuff, only a dozen yuan or so. I saw them on the street and just picked them up. Chu Wanning looked up with red eyes. I don't believe you. I couldn't tell her the truth either, that these cost a full 500 yuan. So I just said, it's a birthday gift anyway. So don't be so polite with me. You'll have to give me a gift on my birthday too. Chu Wanning looked away. Reaching out to take the shoes, she hesitantly said, Numa, sinyet kau kwa mutsoy. Then I had just uttered those words, when I suddenly stopped and stared at her. You know my birthday. Chu Wanning's beautiful eyes gradually widened. She quickly looked away. No, I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm not sure how the girl in front of me knows my birthday. Anyway, just wait until my next birthday. You can just get me a gift then, right? It's only fair to give back. Chu Wanning lowered her head and nodded slightly. She turned around to head home. As if suddenly remembering something, she stopped in her tracks. She looked at me. Gu Xiaozi, could you pick me up for school tomorrow morning? Just wait for me at the entrance of Guihua Alley. Tomorrow is the sports meet. There's an opening ceremony in the morning and every class has to march in formation. So every student must wear their class uniform early in the morning and rush to the classroom to gather. But Chu Wanning doesn't live in the dorms, so she has to put on her class uniform at home. She probably doesn't want passersby staring at her on the street. I immediately understood what she meant. I smiled and replied, sure. Chu Wanning also flashed a smile. Thanks, see you tomorrow at 7:30 then. Early the next morning, I was woken up by my 7 a.m. alarm. After a quick wash, I set out from home. I biked to the entrance of Guihua Alley as planned. I checked my watch. It was almost 7:30. Not long after, Chu Wanning walked to the alley entrance with her backpack. I looked at her curiously. Where's your class uniform? Chu Wanning said awkwardly, it's inside my school jacket. I glanced down at Chu Wanning. The school jacket. Her pants looked a bit bulky around the thighs. That must be the skirt, but she was still wearing canvas shoes. Before I could even ask, she explained immediately, the leather shoes are in my backpack, okay? Hop on, this girl already covered herself in her school jacket. Yet she still insisted I pick her up. Isn't that just making things complicated? I thought to myself, amused. We split up a few hundred meters from the school. I biked onto the campus first. I walked into the classroom wearing my uniform. The girls gathered and gossiping all turned their heads at once, like thieves, quickly scanning me from head to toe. Then they hurried back into a huddle, whispering among themselves. I don't know what they were saying. Some of the girls were so excited they were stomping their feet. I shamelessly leaned in to listen. I really didn't expect this. Gu Xiaozi looks pretty handsome in his uniform, doesn't he? He's quite tall, and he has a solid build. He looks great in those clothes. He's probably the most muscular guy in our class. At that moment, I spoke up. Just how handsome. The girls immediately turned around. Blushing furiously, they pushed me away. What are you doing eavesdropping, you boy? Get lost. Just then, Chu Wanning walked through the door. The girls turned to look again. Their surprised eyes began to observe. Why isn't she wearing the class uniform? Chu Wanning didn't pay attention to anyone. She quietly walked to her seat. After neatly setting down her backpack, she picked up the class sign placed next to her seat, taking advantage of the time to practice at the back of the room. Her expression was incredibly serious, She didn't act awkward just because she saw me watching. I withdrew my gaze and sat quietly in my spot. The opening ceremony is at 9 a.m., so students arrived a bit late today. The boys who were excited before putting on the uniforms suddenly became shy and acted cool once they were wearing them. Not long after, more and more people arrived. The chatter in the classroom finally grew loud. Song Xinyao entered the room surrounded by a few girls. This scene immediately caught the attention of many. After entering the room, the first person Song Xinyao looked at was me. Her eyes suddenly lit up, but she quickly and deliberately looked away. She casually flipped her long hair toward me. Song Xinyao thought I would definitely be sneaking peeks at her, so she didn't bother to say hello first, even though she'd been ignored for half a month and desperately wanted to talk to me. She still tried to maintain her haughty air. I didn't even bother giving her a single glance. I've seen countless beauties in my past life. Song Xinyao is just the most ordinary among those cheap, made-up girls. Soon everyone had arrived. Chu Wanning had finished practicing. She put the class sign back against the wall. It was obvious she was a bit nervous. She kept her head down and quietly took deep breaths. Just then, the homeroom teacher Chin Gui entered the room. She tapped on the podium. "Everyone get ready, put on your class uniforms. Once the music starts." "Well, all head downstairs." Wai Mingyu stood up. He shouted, "Those who haven't changed into the uniform, hurry up and change. There are only about 10 minutes left." Hearing that, Chu Wanning reached up and unzipped her school jacket. Her full chest under the white shirt was briefly revealed through the opening of the zipper. I instinctively fixed my eyes on it. "What are you looking at?" Chu Wanning spoke up, her ears turning bright red. Turns out she had noticed my gaze long ago. I answered without thinking, "It's beautiful." Chu Wanning's face flushed crimson as well. She handed her school jacket to me. "Hold this for a second." After saying that, she reached both hands into her pant legs to adjust the hem of her skirt first, to avoid exposing herself when she took off her pants. Once everything was adjusted, she took off her long pants, revealing a pair of long, snowy white, smooth legs. Her skin was so smooth you couldn't even see any pores. "Stop looking." Her ears were so red they looked like they might bleed. She let out a soft, weak plea. I argued righteously. "Didn't you ask me to hold your jacket?" Chu Wanning didn't know what else to say. She continued changing the rest of her uniform. Chu Wanning leaned over to untie her canvas shoes. I smiled and said to her, "Right, I have a 3,000-meter race this morning. Do you want to meet me at the finish line? I'll definitely be exhausted by then. Aside from you, I don't have any other friends." Chu Wanning nodded without hesitation. After taking off both shoes, she took a pair of black leather shoes out of her backpack, gently placing them on the ground. Her petite feet slowly slipped into the shoes. For some reason, I found this scene quite beautiful. Chu Wanning opened her backpack again and took out a pink hair clip. She clipped it onto her bangs by feel. Then she turned her head to look at me. I couldn't help but smile, helping her adjust the position of the clip. Then I asked curiously, "You seem a bit different today." Today's Chu Wanning seemed to be actively shedding, layer after layer of her outer shell, gradually revealing her true self. Chu Wanning wasn't in a hurry to answer. Instead, she leaned over to pick up the class sign, as if gripping the weapon of youth. She looked up, pursed her lips slightly and said, "Because you said youth only happens once. I also want to try and make an effort, so that my future self won't have regrets." She originally thought she couldn't do it, but after last night, she felt that since someone had celebrated her birthday, even these things that seemed impossible could actually happen to her. It seems she could also try to work harder in other areas. She wanted to be worthy of my encouragement. She didn't want the pretty leather shoes and pink hair clip gathering dust. In the corner of the room, the music started playing. Teacher Chin Gui came in and shouted, "Get ready to assemble. Chu Wanning, hold the sign steady. Today, you are the face of class 1228. Everyone turned to look toward the back corner of the classroom. It was meant to be just a casual glance, but every single gaze suddenly froze. Holy crap! Liyu's jaw dropped, let out a cry of amazement. Song Xinyao looked stunned. The others in class were also completely dazed. Everyone knew Chu Wanning was beautiful, but they often unconsciously forgot her existence, because she was so low profile. Year-round, she only wore that uniform. Year-round, she was always silent and withdrawn. Year-round, she always kept a cold expression. But today, she suddenly changed. The change in hairstyle and attire instantly turned her into a different person. A radiant Chu Wanning, shining like a star. She was clearly the same person, but compared to before, she seemed to have undergone a complete transformation. At the window corner at the back of the classroom, Chu Wanning stood up. She set the class sign up on the desk. Noticing everyone staring at her, she quietly lowered her head. Carrying the sign, she walked toward the exit. On her way out, she couldn't help but glance back, seeing me following behind her. She finally felt a bit more at ease. Wei Minju snapped back to his senses and spoke up. Let's go. Everyone head downstairs to assemble. As soon as he finished speaking, right in front of Song Jinyao, he couldn't help but steal another glance at Chu Wanning before excitedly walking out of the classroom. Chu Wanning was truly too beautiful. Everyone went downstairs together. Walking in the crowd, Chu Wanning felt incredibly awkward. She kept checking to see where I was. Seeing that I hadn't caught up, she slowed down her pace slightly until I was walking right behind her. Then she started walking at her normal speed. I leaned close to her ear and whispered, "Nervous?" Chu Wanning nodded slightly. She held on tight with both hands, as if what she was holding wasn't a class sign, but her own sense of security. The skirt obviously wasn't that short. Chu Wanning kept wanting to pull it down lower, pulling. The gazes from around her also made her very uncomfortable. More and more people were glancing her way, even though they were all looks of amazement and admiration. But in Chu Wanning's eyes, those gazes were like blinding camera flashes, shining on her and making her feel completely exposed, extremely unnatural. Accustomed to social anxiety and low self-esteem, even the admiring looks of strangers became terrifying. I noticed her awkwardness and offered some comfort by her side. "Have some confidence. Don't be too nervous." Chu Wanning nodded, but I knew perfectly well that she wasn't processing a word of it. I continued to comfort her. "During exams, you always perform at your usual level. Why weren't you nervous back then?" "It's not the same." Chu Wanning lowered her head and whispered a protest. I chuckled. "It's all the same. Today is also an exam on the subject of youth. Just carry this sign for those 100 meters, and your youth will get a perfect score of 100. Trust me." Chu Wanning looked up in the direction my finger was pointing. That was the path the parade formations would take. I looked down at her shoes. Continued, "You're wearing the birthday gift I gave you. Isn't that enough to give you courage?" I don't know. I had spoken words of encouragement that carried immense weight for Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning turned to look at me with her captivatingly beautiful eyes. My face was clearly reflected in those eyes. Her gaze gradually became more determined. I looked at her and smiled, saying, "Take a deep breath and let's go." Chu Wanning nodded, standing obediently in place. She inhaled and her full chest rose. I stole a glance at her chest, then guided her to exhale. That ample chest slowly lowered. It was quite a sight. Chu Wanning gripped the sign tightly and walked toward the front of the class line. Countless eyes from all around kept converging on her. In my eyes, Chu Wanning, holding the class sign, was stepping out of the shadows and into the sunlight, taking her place in the formation as before. I watched the parade formations on the stadium grounds, taking a look around. All sorts of monsters and demons had appeared, from white lab coats to hospital gowns. Even the Calabash brothers, they had everything. Compared to them, our class uniform looked as ordinary as could be. The class in front of us wore Hogwarts wizard robes. Since I'm quite tall, I stood in the last row of the formation. I saw Chu Wanning standing at the front with the homeroom teacher. Chu Wanning kept her face down. It was unclear what she was thinking. At that moment, she turned her head back. Her eyes seemed to be searching for something, until she saw me in the back row. Then she turned away. The parade music in the stadium was still booming. The announcer's voice through the microphone echoed across the stadium. "It has started over there." I waited in place, feeling bored. Suddenly, there was a commotion up ahead. The people in the front rows stepped aside one by one, as if making way for someone to pass through. I turned my head to see, and discovered Chu Wanning was pushing through the crowd with a class sign, heading straight for the back row. Chu Wanning lowered her head. Her ears were flush red. Under the gaze of the entire class, she walked right up to me before stopping. Chu Wanning didn't say a word. She didn't even bother to look up at me. She directly reached out her fair hand and gripped my wrist tightly. Then she turned around and led me away, pushing through the formation once more, bringing me to the position at the very front of the parade. Everyone was stunned silent. They couldn't understand what this beautiful girl, usually so cold and quiet, was trying to do. The front row was full of fresh, pretty girls. With my tall frame, I just stood there looking dazed, like a crane among chickens. I also felt a bit awkward at this point, so I leaned in and whispered to Chu Wanning, "Hey, what are you doing?" Chu Wanning clung to the sign and refused to say a word. She just stood in front of me with her head down, keeping absolute silence. Teacher Qin Gui gave an awkward smile
and couldn't help asking, "Wanning, what's the meaning of you dragging him up here?" Chu Wanning remained silent, head bowed, refusing to open her mouth for the life of her. The teacher looked at me with pure annoyance. I just raised an eyebrow, acting like it had nothing to do with me. "What are you still standing here for? Go back to your spot, don't show off." The teacher glared at me. She ordered me, so I clicked my tongue and raised my hand to head back. But I had only taken one step, when the silent Chu Wanning hurriedly grabbed my arm, not letting me go. Song Xinyao and the other girls watched this scene with strange looks. The teacher was once again dumbfounded. She really didn't understand what this girl was trying to convey. Seeing the teacher's speechless face, I smirked and said smugly, Look, it's not that I don't want to go back. It's that she won't let me." The teacher gave me a blistering glare, but when facing Chu Wanning, her expression immediately softened. She smiled and asked, "Wanning, do you want Gu Xiao's to stand at the front?" Chu Wanning still didn't speak, but her small hand still gripped my wrist tightly, as if she would never let go, no matter what. Everyone in class knew she had a quirky personality. This strange behavior was actually quite in character for her. The teacher was out of options. Her favoritism toward Wanning and her double standards were already legendary. She immediately turned and ordered me, "Gu Xiaozi, get in line, stand in the first row." I was stunned when I heard that. The teacher pushed up her glasses and added sternly, "Just try me. If I tell you to stand there, then stand there. Why all the nonsense?" Seeing that, Chu Wanning quickly let go of my arm. The teacher didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "You really are. If you wanted Gu Xiaozi in the front row, you could have just said so. It's not like I would have refused." I chuckled and squeezed into the first row, right in the middle of all the girls, surrounded by female students. I was the only tall boy standing there. It looked like the whole formation was sticking a middle finger forward. The boys in the back rows were gritting their teeth. When they saw Chu Wanning leading me by the hand, they were all completely frozen. Since when did these two get so close? Song Xinyao was also in the front row. She began to voice her dissatisfaction. "Teacher, Gu Xiaoze is a boy. Why does he get to stand with us girls?" Thinking about what Chu Wanning just did, an unknown fire flared up inside her. Now seeing me standing proudly in the front row, the more she looked at me, the more annoyed she became. The teacher turned to look at her. Based on the fact that I'm the homeroom teacher, Song Xinyao frowned and stomped her foot in frustration. Having confirmed that I was standing right behind her, Chu Wanning let out a soft sigh of relief. Only then did she turn around while holding the sign. She didn't want to take the exam alone. In this exam called Youth, there's one thing I said wrong. In her heart, only when I'm by her side, does this exam truly feel like youth, so that when she looks back years later, she won't feel any regret. Her hand gripping mine, refusing to let go, represented her obsession. After waiting for about half an hour, it was finally our class's turn in the parade. Chu Wanning lifted the class sign, walking closely behind the class in front, stopping at the 100-meter starting line. All students from class 27 were dressed in Hogwarts uniforms. Suddenly, they all turned around at the same time, facing the stadium. They pulled wands out of their robes. Synchronously leaning at a 45-degree angle, they waved a circle in the air, before tucking the wands back into their robes. Enthusiastic applause erupted across the field. The more gimmicks a class performed, the more excited the audience became. My homeroom teacher didn't like doing those kinds of stunts, so Class 28's parade performance last year was quite ordinary. Next up, approaching us is Class 1228. Class 1228 is led by their homeroom teacher. The teacher whispered a reminder, let's go, everyone stay focused." Chu Wanning held up the class sign. Her fair, slender arms were crossed and held the pole straight. She stepped forward. Her long legs were encased in black knee-high socks. Her black leather shoes were polished and shiny. She walked over the ribbons scattered on the track. In that very moment, all 27 classes standing on the field fixed their eyes on the girl carrying the sign. They didn't cheer, nor did they clap. They just stared blankly at Chu Wanning's silhouette. Surprise was visible in everyone's eyes. Class 28. Did they recruit a heavenly angel to come here and carry the sign? Because she was so beautiful, she seemed to belong to a completely different dimension. Many people began turning to their classmates in dazed confusion, asking who this stunning girl they'd never seen before was, where she came from, and what her name was. Those were all questions from the boys, because Chu Wanning was actually quite well known among the girls. Formation gradually moved forward.
Chu Wanning, holding the sign, became the center of 10,000 gazes. Even the class 1228 sign in her hands seemed to look much more high class. More and more eyes were converging on her. Chu Wanning's heart was thumping wildly. She had never been the center of so much attention. Even with me standing behind her providing a sense of security, she still couldn't block out the pressure from those countless gazes. I also noticed the sign in Chu Wanning's hands starting to tremble.
Suddenly, my resonant voice rang out from behind. "Hello, everyone. You've all worked hard." Hearing this, Chu Wanning paused for a moment. Then she smiled and let out a soft sigh of relief, as if she had just been given a new lease on life. Her hands were infused with a surge of strength. The sign that was slowly drooping was raised high and straight once again. This shout of mine drew all the gazes fixed on the girl over to me. The teacher turned back and saw me waving enthusiastically greeting everyone in the stadium. Her smile instantly froze on her face. But now there's no way it can catch fire. She could only watch helplessly as I fooled around, and everyone noticed it too. This tall guy standing in the middle of all these girls. They were laughing and looking surprised at the same time. Quite a few people also shouted back, "It's not hard at all," I loudly retorted. "What do you mean not hard? Or is it because there's too little homework? Teachers, take a look at that." In the stands, grade 12 head Girishin looked at me with a face as dark as soot. He also glanced at the principal's expression. Seeing the principal was smiling, he suddenly felt completely relieved. The homeroom teacher covered her face with her hands, so embarrassed she wanted to find a hole to crawl into. However, this humorous exchange, along with the eye-catching appearance of a boy in a garden of flowers, Class 28's formation still received thunderous applause. But that enthusiasm surely included admiration for the girl holding the sign. I was just the fuse for those rounds of applause. After finishing the formation smoothly, the whole of Class 28 moved toward the assembly point on the field. Chu Wanning stood at the front, holding the sign. Boys and girls fanned out behind into two rows. I was still standing at the head of the inner girls' row. The sound of the homeroom teacher gritting her teeth rang in my ears. "Wait until this is over. I'll settle the score with you later." And I just smiled and said, "Teacher, I'm running the 3,000 meters this morning. Don't put too much pressure on me." My nonchalant answer made the homeroom teacher freeze. That woman in her 30s instantly changed from anger to a smile-like face changing in Sichuan opera. She gently patted my shoulder, encouragingly saying, "Oh, is that so? Student Gu, do you have an event this morning? Try your best to run well. I was just joking with you earlier." I couldn't help but nod with a smile. What she means is, she'll deal with me after the race, as a woman who always wants to be number one in everything. The reason she dotes on Chu Wanning so much is because every time Chu Wanning can single-handedly pull Class 28 seconds average up by another 7 or 8 points. I heard that at the end of last semester, Chu Wanning didn't take the exam. Class 28's average thus dropped out of the top 3 in the grade. So, since the start of this semester, Teacher Chin has been enduring hardship and plotting in the office. Until now, she hasn't even bothered to speak to the other teachers, just waiting for this monthly exam to hold her head high. The opening ceremony ended. I ran back to change into my sports gear, ready for the 3,000-meter race this morning. And Chu Wanning headed toward the school convenience store. The brief 1-minute parade had turned her into a complete school star. This is absolutely no exaggeration. If the internet weren't so underdeveloped this year, the video of Chu Wanning holding the sign would surely have gone viral on short video platforms by now. On the way to the store, Chu Wanning felt more and more eyes fixed on her. Some were even gathering in small groups, silently following her and gossiping, just like obsessed fans. Chu Wanning didn't respond to any of the gazes, just walked with her head down as if no one was around. Even the clear conversations around her reached her ears. Amidst the chatter, she even heard her own name. Like a spreading epidemic, her name had silently spread throughout the entire number 7 high school stadium. Even those who didn't usually notice her learned her name because of it. "Senior, please wait a moment." Hearing a call from ahead, Chu Wanning stopped in her tracks. She looked up and saw a scholarly, fair-skinned boy ahead. Seeing Chu Wanning looking at him, the boy's face instantly turned red. Chu Wanning didn't respond, but she didn't leave right away either, but stood waiting for him to explain why he blocked her way. "Senior, can I have your QQ number?" The fair-skinned boy leaned in slightly, shyly asking in what he thought was a deep, charming voice. Chu Wanning shook her head. "I don't have that." The boy was stunned before he could react. She had already brushed past him and continued walking forward. The boy's expression looked truly awkward. What, is she really that cold? How could she not have QQ? Everyone at this age has one.
Arriving at the convenience store, Xu Wanning softly asked the clerk, "Excuse me, how much is a bottle of mineral water?" The owner was a young man. Hearing her, he replied, 1.5 yuan a bottle. "Little sister." Xu Wanning tightly clutched 2 coins. Softly asked again, "I thought it was 1 yuan a bottle." The owner let out a sigh. "Well, it's the sports meet today, so the price has gone up slightly." Seeing Xu Wanning's hesitant expression, he readily said, "Then I'll sell it to you at the old price, 1 yuan a bottle." Only then did Xu Wanning give him the 2 coins and received 2 bottles of mineral water. The young owner blankly watched the girl walk away, whispering, "Is this girl a student at this school? Why haven't I ever seen her?" "Shopkeeper, 2 bottles of mineral water." Chen Fei called to the owner. At the same time, he turned to watch Xu Wanning's back. He was buying water for Zhang Yifeng after the 100-meter dash. "Is Xu Wanning planning to give it to Gu Xiaozi?" The shopkeeper glanced over, then casually replied, 3 yuan a bottle, 6 yuan for 2. Then he lay back down to continue watching TV, on the other side on the red track. I was standing in the middle of the track, preparing for the 3,000-meter long-distance run. On a 400-meter track, it's a total of 7.5 laps. There were 11 people in my group. Even Wang Mingwu from my class was there. Wang Mingwu waved to the class 28 students surrounding him. With full confidence, he said, "Everyone, rest assured, will take care of first place in this group fighting." The homeroom teacher also stood gathered with the students, excitedly cheering for Wang Mingwu. But they all seemed to have forgotten that I was also in this group. Wang Mingwu, while warming up, approached right next to me. I was also warming up. Said with a contemptuous tone, "What's wrong with you? Not wearing shorts, but coming here in these long pants." I let out a hiss, casually patting the little flowers and grass that Xu Wanning had embroidered on my pant leg. "What does that have to do with you?" Wang Mingwu didn't bother with me. He originally didn't have any particular feelings toward me. But seeing Xu Wanning suddenly so close to me, he instinctively found me an eyesore. Why do both Song Xinyao and Xu Wanning have a good relationship with him? The girls in the class kept cheering enthusiastically for him. This made Wang Mingwu feel very satisfied. He saw 2 energy drink bottles in Song Xinyao's hands. Wang Mingwu knew she would surely give them to him later. "Oh my, Gu Xiaozi." Just then, a voice rang out from beside me. I turned to look. Seeing a guy with a pitch-black face, looking just like Justice Bao. Based on my memory, I tentatively asked, "Dan Yu?" Dan Yu laughed and patted my shoulder. "What's up? Don't recognize me anymore?" He was my classmate in grade 10. After the classes split, we rarely stayed in touch, but we actually have a very good relationship, since I was the one who always ranked first from the bottom of the grade, and he was guaranteed to be second from the bottom. Dan Yu suddenly lowered his voice, secretly whispering to me, "I saw you in class 28's formation. That Xu Wanning in your class, I'd only heard her name before. Never seen her face, didn't know she was so beautiful. Just like she stepped out of an anime. I keep wondering, why haven't I ever met her before?" While warming up, I replied, "She's a commuter student. Besides, she only cares about studying." Dan Yu shamelessly pleaded, "So, are you close with her? Give me her QQ number, please." I touched the grass embroidery on my pants and the little flowers looking around, but still couldn't see Xu Wanning anywhere. Not close. Right at this moment, the teacher with the starter pistol shouted loudly, "Athletes, to your marks," followed by the sound of the gun. The 11 people in the group began to run in a steady pace. Wang Mingwu immediately broke ahead to lead. Dan Yu and I were still chatting in the middle of the pack. This guy is like he's under a spell. She's truly the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. "Brother, I've never asked you for anything in my life. Help me get her contact info, please." "Oh damn, she's here." Dan Yu suddenly shouted, seeing Xu Wanning holding 2 mineral water bottles outside the track. Xu Wanning trotting over looked like a fairy descending to earth. His eyes widened in shock. Then, overwhelmed by shock, he tripped and rolled on the ground. I hurried forward to help him up. At the same time, I looked up at Xu Wanning. Xu Wanning smiled at me, standing shyly by the edge of the track, gently swaying the 2 water bottles in her hands, hinting that she had bought water for me. I smiled back in response. There was an unspoken tacit understanding between the two of us. Neither of us said a word. Then we both looked away at the same time. I really couldn't imagine anyone besides Xu Wanning. Who else could be cheering for me? Xu Wanning's timely appearance and that smile made my heart feel incredibly peaceful in an instant.
I've been held back by you. Look how far ahead everyone else is. I pulled Dan Yu up, immediately following him to chase the pack. Wang Mingwu was still leading. He was running like a madman. But his performance now made the girls very worried. The class 28 girls in JK uniforms were going wild, shouting loudly to cheer him on. My God, she's so beautiful. If I could just say one word to her, then I wouldn't have lived this life in vain, Dan Yu shouted with admiration while running. I laughed and said, You really are under a spell. Is it really that extreme? Don't worry. She's taking the monthly exam in the same room as us. She's the last one. I'm next. Then you. Dan Yu wondered, Isn't she first in the grade? I explained, She missed the last exam, so the two of them are lagging behind this pack. Quickly caught the attention of the homeroom teacher. The woman in her 30s angrily pushed up her glasses and shouted at me. Are you chatting? Gu Xiaoze, if you finish last, see how I'll deal with you. I looked at the homeroom teacher glaring at me like a tigress. Couldn't help but swallow hard. I had to say to Dan Yu beside me, Brother, I'll talk to you on the next lap. I have to run a lap now. Huh? Dan Yu. Felt like he wasn't hearing a human voice. I began to stride and accelerate. This scene immediately grabbed everyone's attention, including the gym teacher. The gym teacher was no exception. What is this guy doing? Why start sprinting now? The gym teacher muttered. The stamina and flexibility brought by rebirth, including strength, various physical qualities. This enhanced benefit couldn't be used for anything else, but it was more than enough for the sports meet. I ran this lap extremely fast. When I zipped past Wang Mingwu, his eyes widened in shock. Hey, no way. Gu Xiaozi. Wait for me. Wang Mingwu refused to back down and tried to catch up, but because the initial burst to lead consumed too much energy, he couldn't keep up with me no matter what. On the contrary, he became slower and slower. Gradually, the group behind caught up to him. I had successfully lapped Dan Yu exactly once. I leisurely ran back beside him. Looking at his horrified gaze, I offered an explanation. What can I do? My homeroom teacher is like a tigress. I should just lap you once to be safe. Right now, I'm already in the lead, Dan. Dan, you blanked out, brother. Doing this makes me look so stupid. I said seriously. Then let's both speed up together. Dan Yu hurriedly shut his mouth, because he realized he'd run right to where Chu Wanning was standing. And that girl was looking at him, making his already dark face suddenly flush deep red with embarrassment. He scratched his head, intending to say hello. But in the end, he was still too shy, only able to avoid Chu Wanning's gaze. Fighting. Chu Wanning softly and timidly cheered. Dan Yu didn't even dare to look up. Hurriedly laughed in response. Okay. Thanks. Once past Chu Wanning's spot, he turned to me and said, That Chu Wanning in your class is quite enthusiastic. I thought she was very cold. But as soon as he spoke, Dan Yu saw me staring at him weirdly. What? Could it be him really that handsome today? Brother, tell the truth. Dan Yu seemed to have just realized something, hurriedly asking me. I scratched my head, laughed awkwardly. It's fine. It's fine because I didn't have the heart to crush him. After all, our relationship is quite good. But that dazed look Chu Wanning gave Dan Yu just now almost made me unable to hold it in, and burst out laughing. Because clearly, Chu Wanning was shouting fighting toward the outside, when running to the 5th lap. I noticed the pack behind had started to accelerate, and I was still in the lead. But that number 1 position was being seriously threatened. The homeroom teacher rushed out like she was going crazy, screaming, Gu Xiaozi, what are you waiting for? They're about to catch up to you. The class clearly couldn't have expected this, that the whole class would have to rely entirely on me, while Wang Mingwu, whom they expected from the start, had now dropped back to the 3rd pack, currently panting like an ox pulling a cart. I seemed to not know what fatigue was, once again taking large strides. The gym teacher stared blankly at the scene. Does this kid still have the strength to sprint? No way. Are you going to sprint for 2 whole laps? After all, it's my class. The gym teacher couldn't help but shout with worry. But I seemed to hear nothing, just taking very long steps, doubling my speed. The group behind looked desperately at the figure in the lead. One man was leaving everyone far behind, a lone horse. Their expressions were both shocked and bewildered. Is this even a human? He already sprinted for a lap earlier. He can still speed up now. Does he have an engine in his lungs? Previously, I only heard Gu Xiaozi was okay at basketball.
Never heard his long-distance endurance was this top tier. I had reached the final lap, seeing the finish line right before me, but I suddenly slowed down, because I had already lapped the second chasing pack. In the last 20 meters, I stopped running. Drenched in sweat, I spread my arms and smiled, putting on a show by imitating an ostrich gait, moving slowly toward the finish line. Class 28 suddenly burst into laughter, but in my sight there was only Chu Wanning. Seeing Chu Wanning standing there being amused by me, I immediately became even more unruly. Turning around again, leisurely walking backward toward the finish line. Other classes watching in the stadium. Some laughed until their stomachs hurt. Others had their faces darken. This performance of mine truly pushed the mockery to its peak. The homeroom teacher, who was always serious, rarely didn't stop my mischievous behavior this time. Because in this long-distance group, there was also a student of her arch-rival. She smugly glanced at Cao Yan standing nearby, mockingly said, "That student Liu Wenqiang from your class. I remember he was a good runner." Liu Wenqiang, trying to secure second place, looked at me in despair. When I stepped across the finish line, his inner confidence completely collapsed. Cao Yan was cold. Haha. Won the group championship. I dropped the pose, took a long sigh of relief. I spread my arms wide, facing the stadium. Class 28 cheered in unison, jumping up in joy. Not long after, Wang Mingwu and Dan Yu also finished one after another. Wang Mingwu looked exhausted towards Song Xinyao, just as a forced smile appeared on his face. He saw that Song Xinyao didn't even bother to look at him. Instead, she walked straight toward me with the energy drink. Dan Yue rested both hands on his knees, panting heavily as he looked up. But then his whole body froze. He saw Chu Wanning trotting over with a mineral water bottle, stretching both hands out toward me, shyly handing the mineral water to me, one on the left, one on the right. One was an expensive drink. One was a cheap bottle of mineral water. Song Xinyao blankly looked at Chu Wanning opposite her. She couldn't imagine this was an action Chu Wanning would ever do. The classes at the scene watched in amazement. I, who had just become the focus of the whole stadium, now because of Chu Wanning's appearance, once again became the true center of attention. Gu Xiaozi, you jerk, didn't you say you weren't close? Dan Yu's eyes bulged with surprise, slowly whispering his inquiry. My family isn't close? If not close, why would she bring water specifically for you? Have you two been together for a long time? And now you're still acting in front of me? Dan Yu stood there questioning his life, feeling his faith completely collapse, even feeling betrayed by a good brother. The grievance of being stabbed in the back, because the moment Chu Wanning said fighting to him, he had already pictured in his head the scene of himself and Chu Wanning reciting vows together in a pure white chapel. Of course, it wasn't just Dan Yu who couldn't stay calm. Chu Wanning, standing by the edge of the track earlier, was already the focus of everyone's attention, seeing Chu Wanning holding 2 mineral water bottles. The sharp-eyed ones noticed something unusual. Sure enough, her water was meant for someone. But who exactly is this student who loves to show off? What is his relationship with Chu Wanning? Purely good friends. Or is it? Chu Wanning simply gave water for class honor, to reward the other person. Of course, there's still another possibility, looming in their minds without needing to be said. If this possibility is true, thousands of boys across the school, pure high school boys who fell for that white swan holding the parade sign, will all simultaneously sink into the darkness of heartbreak. Almost everyone automatically ignored the fact that there was still another person approaching me. I glanced at Song Xinyao, casually said, "I don't drink soda. Thanks." Then I turned and smiled at Chu Wanning, asking Chu Wanning in surprise, "Both bottles?" My Chu Wanning gave a quick, slight nod. Those slender, fair arms held out the mineral water bottle, handing it over with a shyness like giving a love letter. She was waiting for me to take it. I didn't hesitate to take them, and smiled while saying thanks. Song Xinyao silently lowered her hand, muttering to herself, gritting her teeth in hatred. Gu Xiaozi, I'll remember this grudge. Then she turned toward Wang Mingwu, speaking coldly, "Class monitor, take it." Wang Mingwu happily accepted the drink. "Thanks, student Song." I smiled at Chu Wanning. "Let's go. Go rest over there for a bit." After opening the bottle, I immediately gulped down half the bottle. I don't know if it's because I'm truly thirsty, or because Chu Wanning gave me this water, but I feel the water is incredibly sweet and pure. Such a strange thought. I laughed at myself mockingly. I realized without even knowing when,
This girl's place in my heart had suddenly become so much more vital. I couldn't even pinpoint exactly why. Seeing me staring blankly at the water bottle, Chu Wanning blinked softly, and then hurriedly came to a halt. "Do you want some soda? Let me go buy some for you." I have money now," I explained in a rush. "No, it's not that at all. I was just checking what brand of water this was. It's strange. It turns out it's actually this delicious." Chu Wanning didn't have time to react. She tilted her head slightly in confusion. But once she realized I wasn't looking at the bottle because I looked down on her, or because she had only given me ordinary mineral water, Chu Wanning let out a satisfied smile. Then she said, "All right, tomorrow when you run the 800 meters, I'll go buy water for you again." I smiled and nodded, saying that would be great. Chu Wanning smiled again. I was a little surprised. I noticed that even though she seemed a bit awkward today, the number of times she smiled had clearly increased. Could it be that she felt today's experience of youth wasn't so bad after all? I have to admit, I'd lost count of how many times I'd stared blankly at her face today. This was something I had never experienced before. I didn't have any more events to compete in this morning. After finishing the 3,000 meters, I was finally free. As Chu Wanning and I walked and talked, I noticed more and more gazes from those around us fixing on the two of us. Not just the boys, but even the girls were watching. I suddenly felt that if I were to take Chu Wanning's hand right now, it would surely cause a massive stir across the entire stadium. These high school kids really have nothing better to do than stare at people. Seeing classmates gathered around the 100-meter track, the two of us headed over there together. Right then, quick as a flash, Chu Wanning pressed a handful of tissues into my palm. I looked at her, bewildered. Chu Wanning opened her mouth to say something but stopped, instead hurriedly raising a pale finger, pointing to her own fair cheek. I got the message. "Oh, you're telling me to wipe off the sweat?" Chu Wanning gave a slight nod. I laughed and said, "Why don't you just wipe it for me? My arms are so tired I can't even lift them." Chu Wanning instinctively started to reach out. Seeing how crowded it was around us, she immediately lowered her head and bashfully quickened her pace, walking straight ahead. She decided to ignore my request. We made our way to the side of the 100-meter track. Zhang Feng was currently standing at the starting line. Despite the bib on his chest, he looked utterly drowsy and listless. Chen Fei, clutching a few bottles of mineral water, stood awkwardly amidst the crowd. The race hadn't even started yet, and everyone had already lost all hope. The homeroom teacher standing nearby shouted loudly, "Zhang Feng, open your eyes wide for me, and look at the track." Zhang Feng obediently raised a hand, physically prying his eyelids open as he stared fixedly at the lane. As soon as the starting pistol went off, everyone else shot off like bullets. But Zhang Feng was like an old man on a morning stroll, leisurely jogging along at the back. The teacher was walking, yet her speed was nearly the same as his. The woman in her 30s strode alongside him, so furious that the veins on her temples were throbbing. "Zhang Feng, are you taking a stroll? Zhang Feng, can you even hear me?" After being called out countless times, he finally spoke up lazily. "Teacher, I can't outrun them anyway, so I might as well save my strength." The 100-meter event concluded. Zhang Feng's time was 1 minute. He ran slower than a walk. The homeroom teacher even managed to walk to the finish line before him. Seeing this, his deskmate Chen Fei excitedly ran to the finish line. "You must be exhausted, right? Zhang Feng, quick, drink some water to wet your throat." The teacher looked at Chen Fei standing there with a face full of disbelief. They truly are deskmates. What a bizarre combination. I pulled my gaze away and said to Chu Wanning, "Let's go. Since you treated me to water, let me treat you to lunch." Chu Wanning took a deep breath and was about to refuse, but I waved her off. "It's just a meal." Chu Wanning finally stopped being so stiff. She gave a small nod. "I'm going to the restroom for a moment, and then I'll come right back to find you." I waved. "Hurry back, I'll be waiting." After Chu Wanning left, I continued standing by the 100-meter track, watching the subsequent heats. After watching group after group, nearly everyone from the class had headed to the cafeteria, but I still hadn't seen Chu Wanning return. Is she having a long session or something? I glanced at my watch, my heart filled with questions. I waited another 15 minutes, yet there was still no sign of her. I didn't hesitate any longer, and immediately ran toward the lecture building. Something has definitely happened. From the stadium, if one wanted to use the restroom, the quickest option was the first floor of the lecture hall opposite. I wasn't sure which building Wanning had entered, so I chose the nearest grade 11 block. As I approached the restroom area, right in front of the girls' restroom, I saw a cleaning in progress sign placed on the floor. Just to be certain,
I still called out toward the inside, Chu Wanning. Gu Xiaoze. I heard it, a voice mixed with sobs coming from within. I furrowed my brows and kicked the sign aside. I immediately realized someone had intentionally placed that sign there. Its purpose was to prevent anyone from entering and discovering what was happening. I rushed inside and saw all the stalls were closed. Chu Wanning's voice was coming from the room in the innermost corner. This room was slightly different. The latch was on the outside. As long as that outer latch was closed, the person inside couldn't escape. I knew this was a storage room for cleaning supplies. The boys' restroom had a similar one. I immediately flipped the latch and pushed the door open. Only then did I see Chu Wanning huddled in the corner, weeping miserably. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her hair was a mess as if someone had yanked it hard. I had never seen her looking so heartbroken. I gave Chu Wanning's body a quick scan. Seeing no open wounds, I finally dared to breathe a small sigh of relief. Then, trying to stay calm, I asked, "What happened? Are you hurt anywhere?" Chu Wanning shook her head, no. But she was still crying so intensely, reminding me of the scene at her birthday party. But the circumstances were completely different this time. Right now, Chu Wanning's face held nothing but pain and despair. I was about to ask more, but the words caught in my throat. I saw Chu Wanning tremblingly hold out her right hand. In her fair palm were the broken pieces of the pink hair clip, twisted and mangled. It looked like someone had intentionally stomped on it with the sole of their shoe. Chu Wanning bit her lip hard, tears falling as she said, "They broke it. The hair clip is broken. The clip you gave me is broken." I tried to piece it back together, but I couldn't. I kept trying and trying, but it won't work. Gu Xiaoze, I can't fix it anymore. She kept sobbing and repeating that it couldn't be fixed, all while carefully touching the pink fragments in her palm with her fingertips. It was as if she had just lost the most precious, meaningful thing in her life, something that, once damaged, could never be replaced. It was enough to make even someone as resilient as her unable to cope, causing her to completely crumble in despair. But I didn't quite understand. It was just a hair clip, not worth much money, so why be so devastated? Even so, I frowned deeply and hurriedly grabbed her arm. "Let's get out of here first. It's not right here. Once we're out, you can tell me everything." However, just as the words left my mouth, the sound of girls chatting echoed from outside the restroom. I reacted instantly, pulling her back into the storage room. Then I turned and signaled for Chu Wanning to be quiet. Chu Wanning was shining so brightly today, anyone could recognize her. If other girls caught her in the restroom with a boy, there was no telling how wild the rumors would become. Public opinion is truly a terrifying thing. Rather than going out to explain, it was better to avoid the risk altogether and wait for them to finish before leaving. And I knew all too well that even if I told them Chu Wanning was being bullied, the truth would never reach others accurately. "Did you guys see Wanning today? She's absolutely stunning." I saw. What I find strange is, before coming to number 7 high, why didn't we ever hear anything about her? She probably just kept a low profile. I frowned. These girls seemed to have come in here just to gossip. It didn't seem like they were using the restroom at all. There are plenty of places to talk, so why stand in here and chat for so long? Just then, the janitor's voice echoed. "What's that smell?" The girls replied, "We don't know. It was already like this when we came in." I heard the janitor walking toward the storage closet. This left me stunned. A dark shadow flickered under the door gap. Just as I thought she was about to open the door, the outside latch merely let out a dry click. I thought I'd closed this. The janitor muttered and walked away, then said to the girls, "If you girls aren't using the restroom, then don't stay here playing around." "We're not doing anything." "Yeah, that's right. We didn't do anything," the girls muttered as they shuffled out of the restroom together. The janitor's voice also faded into the distance. Inside the tiny room, I stood frozen, staring open-mouthed at the door. I reached out and gave it a light push, but the door wouldn't budge. I applied a bit more force, but it was still the same. The janitor had latched the door from the outside. I pushed twice more with all my might, yet it still wouldn't open. Finally, I had to turn around and speak to Chu Wanning in a helpless tone. Chu Wanning, standing in the corner, didn't respond at all. She didn't seem to care whether the door was locked or not. She just kept her head down, focusing all her attention on piecing together the fragments in her palm, as if she were thinking, "If I can put it together, maybe I can use some superglue." Even if it couldn't be worn normally anymore, that hair clip would still exist. As long as it was there and whole, that was enough. I stood and watched for a moment, then spoke up.
It looks like a piece is missing. Chu Wanning. She looked up with a face full of immense grievance. I thought I picked them all up. Tears welled up again, falling like a broken string of pearls, drop after drop soaking into the dusty storage floor. Why? Why is there a piece missing?
I saw exactly where every piece fell. She choked out, her lips trembling with sorrow, her shoulders and hands shaking violently. I had never clearly seen such heartbreak and despair etched onto Chu Wanning's face before. For the first time, I couldn't hold myself back anymore. I stepped forward, gently took Chu Wanning's open hands, and tenderly pulled that slender frame into my arms. It's okay, it's okay. If it's broken, I'll give you another one. If one isn't enough, then two. If two aren't enough, then three. Three aren't enough, then 10. I coaxed her as if I were comforting a child. Chu Wanning let out a sob, and all the grievances she'd been harboring suddenly burst forth. She clung to me tightly, burying her head in my chest as she wept. The damp warmth soaked through my shirt, and it felt as though this girl's pain was melting my very heart. While gently stroking her hair, I softly said, "Trust me, Chu Wanning. You have me here now. With me by your side, things will never be like they were before. Do you believe me?" The grief-stricken girl didn't respond to my words. Her sobbing was so muffled, so heartbreaking. I didn't know how many times Chu Wanning had cried like this, having to stifle the sound. I just felt the fragile body in my arms was like delicate porcelain, so I didn't dare hold her too tightly. Yet Chu Wanning held on to me tighter and tighter. I could roughly guess that maybe for the first time in her life, when she was at her most heartbroken and desperate, she finally had a shoulder, a pair of arms, to lean on without having to worry about anything. As for what I just said, perhaps she didn't hear it, or simply didn't understand the deeper meaning behind it, taking it as mere consolation. I didn't need her to understand it all. What I wanted to convey was just one thing, that with me here in this life, Chu Wanning would never be bullied by anyone again. Whether the enemy was a person or cruel fate, I silently told myself that this girl's presence was likely the very reason for my rebirth. While lightly patting Chu Wanning's shoulders, I looked up to examine our surroundings. There was no toilet in this storage room. The floor was just flat white ceramic tile. The space was less than 2 square meters, with only a few mops leaning against the wall. Just like the other restroom stalls, the top of the partition was open. If the door couldn't be opened, then that gap above was likely the only way out. But there was nothing to grip onto, and the partition was both high and thin. Trying to climb over wouldn't be easy at all. If only there were a toilet in here, at least there would be something to step on. Unfortunately, there was nothing. While I was busy plotting an escape, I suddenly felt a softness brush against my chin. It turned out Chu Wanning had looked up. Her crying had also subsided. Her nose was flushed red. She let go of me and slowly backed into the corner, still sniffing. She lowered her head, peeking at the broken hair clip pieces in her hand, then carefully and protectively tightened her grip on them. She hugged her own arms, her messy hair falling to veil half of her pale face. Chu Wanning seemed to have regained her composure, but her immediate reaction was to huddle in the corner, like a wounded animal instinctively seeking refuge. "I'm sorry." Standing in the corner, she whispered to me. I looked at her in surprise. "Huh? Why are you apologizing? Because you held on to me so tightly?" Realizing what she meant, I said between laughs and sighs, "There's nothing to apologize for. I often hug people around me when I'm sad too. Besides, I was the one who reached out to hug you first." Chu Wanning remained silent. I looked at her and asked, "Are you hungry?" As soon as the words left my mouth, I wanted to slap myself. Asking that in a restroom, something was definitely wrong with my brain. Chu Wanning shook her head slightly. Then she looked up, her bloodshot eyes turning toward the door. "Can we not get out?" I shrugged helplessly. "It's locked from the outside. But don't worry, we don't need to wait for someone to save us. We can get out on our own. Besides, we might not even be able to call for help. There's probably no one out there right now. It's lunch break. There won't be many people left at the stadium either. And who'd bother coming to the first floor of the lecture block for the restroom? What's more, we can't really call for a rescue. Because as being trapped in the girls' restroom, it's best if no one finds out. I don't mind either way, but I'm worried about your reputation." Chu Wanning suddenly made a face and began to sob again. I have to go. I can't hold it anymore." A massive question mark popped up in my head, You have to go. You mean, you haven't had the chance to go this whole time. Chu Wanning immediately shook her head repeatedly, tears of frustration flying. As soon as she entered, those girls surrounded her, then locked her in this supply closet without a toilet.
I looked at the girl standing awkwardly before me. She truly seemed to have reached her limit. Her long legs clad in black stockings, had knees slightly bent, her legs pressed tightly together in distress. I came up with a solution. Why don't you just do it right here? We're in a restroom anyway. It doesn't necessarily have to be in a toilet. After saying that, I saw Chu Wanning look up, her beautiful red-rimmed eyes looking pitiful as she stared at me with pure awkwardness. At that moment, I suddenly realized that the lack of a toilet wasn't the biggest obstacle. The real problem was that I was standing right here. I immediately said decisively, "I'll turn around." Chu Wanning whispered, "But there's no toilet. It'll get all over my shoes." I quickly replied, "They're just shoes. It's fine if they get dirty." As soon as I said it, I remembered how much Chu Wanning cherished that hair clip, so there was no way she wouldn't care about her leather shoes. I turned back to her and said with a serious expression, "I have a way to keep your feet off the ground, but it requires sacrificing my shoes. Do you know how parents hold their kids when they have to go?" Seeing Chu Wanning's face go blank, I hurriedly retracted my joke and changed my tone. All right, I have another way." I placed 2 mops on the left and right, telling Chu Wanning to step on the mop heads, thus naturally creating a space in the middle. Once it was set up, I immediately turned around. At this point, Chu Wanning was too desperate to feel shy. She hurriedly crouched down to relieve herself. An odd expression crossed my face. I had to cross my arms and stare at the partition with my head down, feeling both awkward and rubbing my eyes. Those short 15 or 20 seconds were no small torture for both Chu Wanning and me. Finished? No answer came, only rustling sounds from behind, followed by the sound of rapid mopping. I waited until all the sounds stopped before turning around, though I couldn't suppress a mischievous grin. Knowing that laughing in this situation was improper, I tried to hold it in, pretending nothing happened as I surveyed the area. There are 3 ways to get out. First, I'll climb over the top, except there's no foothold, so it'll probably be a bit difficult. Plus, this partition. Who knows, it might just collapse. But I'm very strong, so don't worry about me getting hurt. Second, you can step on me to climb over, doing exactly as I just described. Third, I'll use force to break down the door. Chu Wanning said immediately, "Let me step on you." I hurriedly held her back. "What are you thinking? You're wearing a skirt, it wouldn't be appropriate." Though I really wanted to be her stepping stone, even if it were a futile effort. But in this situation, it was best not to waste any more time. Chu Wanning is just a girl, she doesn't have the strength to climb. So trying would be pointless. No sooner said than done. I braced my foot against the wall and jumped, spinning in mid-air, and firmly gripped the top edge of the partition. My movements were incredibly smooth and decisive. The partition was quite thin, so it seemed a bit wobbly. So I carefully adjust my posture. Thanks to the partition board next to me, I haul myself over the top. Chu Wanning stands below. She anxiously reaches up with her small hands. Her face is filled with worry, looking as if she's afraid I'll fall. Meanwhile, I climb over smoothly, then land on the other side with a thud. Immediately after, there's the sound of the lock being opened. The door opens with a creak. Chu Wanning and I stand facing each other. I spread my arms wide, giving her a proud smile. Am I amazing or what? From inside, Chu Wanning smiles and nods. Very amazing. I reach out to her. Come here, follow me. Without a moment's hesitation, Chu Wanning places her hand in mine. I quickly grab the young girl's hand and we escape outside. Not until we leave the school building do we finally let go of each other's hands. Keeping a person's width apart, we walk forward slowly. Chu Wanning glances at the broken pieces of the hairpin in her hand, then carefully puts them into her pocket. I don't ask her for the names or classes of those girls, because I know Chu Wanning wouldn't say even if her life depended on it. This silly girl. She will absolutely never trouble anyone around her with her problems, especially those who wish her well. Truly very stubborn. She'd rather bear everything alone than bother anyone else. But that's just how her personality is. On this point, I really don't know what to do with her. However, not asking doesn't mean this will just be forgotten. I've never been the type to swallow an insult. I turn my head to look at Chu Wanning, giving a bright smile. Which floor are we eating on? What do you want to eat? But seeing the red tip of Chu Wanning's nose and her teary eyes, my heart truly aches for her. In the end, I can't smile anymore. I reach up to smooth Chu Wanning's long hair. At that moment, students pass by behind us. Chu Wanning quickly dodges my hand, then leans away, raising her small hands to smooth it herself. I turn my head to look at her. Taking a deep breath, I look up at the road ahead. This time, I definitely have to take action. At noon, after we finish eating, Chuaning packs up the leftovers to take home. I don't ask much. She's probably taking it back for her father again. Since I have the 800-meter race this afternoon, Chuaning plans to buy 2 bottles of water for me. Passing by the school's general store, she glances at the young shopkeeper inside. This shopkeeper has been smiling goofily at her the whole time. Little girl, what do you want to buy today?
Mineral water?
Yes, we have it. Xu Wenning glances at the mineral water in the fridge. She doesn't speak right away. Her gaze shifts to the Jianjiao energy drink on the other side. She's about to say something, when suddenly a figure appears beside her. Xu Wenning turns around and sees it's Chen Fei, her classmate. Chen Fei stands there with his arms crossed, glaring at the shopkeeper with a resentful expression, then turns toward Xu Wenning. Don't mind me. You go ahead and buy first, young man. The shopkeeper gives him an expressionless glance, then continues smiling foolishly at Xu Wenning. Well, have you finished looking, little sister? What are you buying? Xu Wenning wants to buy soda for me to drink. Even though I said mineral water tastes good, but Xu Wenning knows well that mineral water can't possibly be as good as soda. How much is this? Xu Wenning tentatively points at the Jianjiao bottle, asking shyly. After speaking, she takes a 5 yuan bill out of her pocket, lowers her head to quietly glance at it, then grips it tightly in her palm. The shopkeeper chuckles. 3 yuan a bottle. Chen Fei immediately screams in shock with wide eyes. 3 yuan a bottle. Why so cheap? During the sports meet, the price went up, yet it's the same as mineral water. Xu Wenning purses her small lips. Looking awkward, she glances at Chen Fei from the corner of her eye, then speaks carefully. Can I buy 2 bottles for 5 yuan? Chen Fei turns and stares at Xu Wenning. You're really too much. Xu Wenning notices Chen Fei's gaze. The tips of her ears turn slightly pink, raising her head to observe the owner's expression. The young shopkeeper is stunned for a moment before reacting, hurriedly nodding. Sure. No problem at all. Having said that, he quickly opens the fridge, taking out 2 bottles of Jianjiao and placing them on the counter. Xu Wenning happily places the 5 yuan bill to the side, hugging the 2 bottles of Jianjiao. Thank you. Having spoken, she turns to leave, without a hint of hesitation, as if afraid the other party would change their mind. The young shopkeeper leans out and calls after her. Come back often. Little sister! Hearing this, Xu Wenning turns slightly, nodding shyly. Seeing that Xu Wenning has gone, Chen Fei quickly says to the shopkeeper, Get me 2 bottles of Jianjiao too. The young shopkeeper expressionlessly places 2 bottles of Jianjiao on the counter. 12 yuan. Chen Fei's movement to take out money freezes. His face stiffens. Looking up at the shopkeeper. What did you say? Holding 2 bottles of Jianjiao in her arms, Xu Wenning walks to the side of the track. She sees me sitting in the class rest area. It's a bit crowded there, so she doesn't rush over. Xu Wenning is in a fairly good mood. Lowering her head, she smiles while admiring the 2 sodas in her arms. Suddenly, she feels a bit curious, wondering what this thing would taste like. Looking for a while. She then withdraws her gaze, looking expectantly toward the boy in the distance. I'll drink it later if there's a chance. These 2 bottles are for Gu Xiao's after all. At Class 28's rest area, I sit on the chair and turn my head, looking sternly at the bald guy from Class 29 nearby. The homeroom teacher's gaze matches mine, looking together in that direction. This boy is obviously an athlete at first glance. He is currently in front of his class's rest area, leisurely performing warm-up exercises. His dead fish eyes are prominent on his face. Just looking at his expression makes one feel he's very strong. But looking at him, I can't help but want to laugh. The homeroom teacher mutters. He seems to be the 800-meter champion from the last meet. He's very good at this middle-distance running. Gu Xiaozi, you mustn't lose this time. The words are barely out when the whistle suddenly blows. 800-meter race, assemble. The bald youth turns his head and gives me a serious look. He knows I'm very strong. I turn my face away. That serious face of his, I just want to laugh whenever I see it. I really can't help it. If we accidentally lock eyes while running, it would be a complete disaster. The match here is about to start. Xu Wenning passes by the 800-meter track, hugging 2 bottles of soda. This is a very popular event. There are many people watching. Xu Wenning chooses not to squeeze in right now. Instead, she stands alone far off on the outside, intending to wait for the crowd to disperse before approaching the starting line.
I say to myself, don't look at me, don't look at me. As it turns out, the bald guy still turns his head to look. The two of us are in adjacent lanes. This guy uses a serious expression to say equally serious words. Gu Xiaozi, I heard you're very strong. Why don't you dare give me a single look? My mind is in total chaos. The whistle blows. A group of 10 people lunges forward like bullets. I suddenly see Chu Wanning in the crowd. She opens her beautiful eyes wide, hurriedly raising her arm, clenching her small white fist, silently cheering for me. In that moment, my legs seem to be infused with extra power. Quickly lunging forward, running parallel to the bald guy. This guy has very good explosive power, but as for stamina, I can't beat him in the first lap. Just wait until the second lap. Very soon we enter the second lap. I grit my teeth, veins bulge and throb, starting to accelerate for the final 400 meters. A roar like an engine sounds beside me. The bald guy seriously turns his head to look, seriously looking at me, gradually overtaking him, seriously staring at my back. With his extremely serious face, he's left behind by me. No way, this is absolutely impossible. The bald guy thinks to himself very seriously. Before the match, he was clearly so timid that he didn't dare look at me. Is he playing the pig to eat the tiger? This annoying fellow. You're not playing fair at all. The bald guy seriously curses his opponent in his mind. The second lap, beyond any doubt in the first to cross the finish line. As a highly watched event, finishing first in the 800-meter race, I will certainly become very prominent. Quite a few girls look at me with eyes that have begun to change. This is truly the ultimate burst of hormones. Gu Xiaozi, you're too strong. I love you to death. This kid, homeroom teacher. The homeroom teacher shouts and jumps for joy, looking just like a child. I cock an eyebrow at her proudly. All of Class 28 is also cheering and shouting for me. I happily look into the crowd, looking toward Chu Wanning, who is at the back. When winning first place, the first thing I think of is sharing this joy with Chu Wanning. Chu Wanning sees my gaze directed at her. She immediately raises the 2 bottles of Jian Jiao in her hands, giving them a gentle shake, signaling to me somewhat bashfully. Seeing this, I quickly run over. At the finish line, Ms. Chao Yan, Class 29's homeroom teacher, looks at me in shock. She finds it a bit hard to understand. In her impression, this student Gu Xiaozi wasn't enthusiastic about anything before, let alone ever participating in sports meet competitions like this. Why is his appearance frequency so high this semester? Whatever, never mind. No matter how good he is at sports, his grades are still at the bottom of the class. The face that Class 29 lost to Class 28 at the sports meet will be regained through the class average score in major exams. Seemingly thinking of that, there is a bit more confidence in Cao Yan's gaze as she looks at my teacher to retort. Do you think having Chu Wanning in your class is enough? As long as your class still has Gu Xiaozi, the average score will never be pulled up. Both the school's top and bottom ranks are in your class. I really don't know whether to congratulate or pity you. On the other hand, I look at the Jianjiao bottle in Chu Wanning's hand with surprise. You bought soda for me. Chu Wanning nods slightly, hurriedly handing both bottles over. Here, for you to drink. I only take 1 bottle. Looking at her, I say, there are 2. Let's have 1 each. But Chu Wanning shakes her head. I won't drink it. They're all for you to drink. My expression becomes serious. You must drink with me. 1 bottle for each of us. Did you hear that? And not asking you, and telling you. I know that Chu Wanning has probably never had soda. Hearing my command instinctively, Chu Wanning doesn't dare disobey. She nods, yes, all right. Having said that, she holds the Jianjiao bottle in her hand, raising her hand to twist the cap, but then finds there's still a plastic film inside. She's a bit flustered, not knowing how to drink it. Isn't it just opening the cap and drinking? She looks up at me, only to see me slowly opening the cap, then using my hand to peel off the thin film. Chu Wanning hurriedly does exactly the same. After peeling off the film, she immediately puts the bottle to her lips, about to drink. Seeing this, I quickly stop her. Smiling, I say, wait, that's not how you drink it. Hearing this, Chu Wanning hands the soda bottle to me with both hands. Smiling a bit shyly, she explains, I've never drunk this before. I laugh out loud. It's all right. Let me demonstrate for you once. Suddenly, my nose feels a bit prickly. She used several days' worth of food money to buy me 2 expensive bottles of water that she herself has never even tasted. What merit or talent do I have to be treated so gently by someone as good as Chu Wanning? I screw the cap back on tightly, then squeeze the bottle hard so the soda squirts into my mouth. Seeing that, Chu Wanning's eyes light up, hurriedly lowering her head, looking in surprise at the tip of the cap. Turns out there's a hole here. I nod. That's right, you try it too. Chu Wanning is a bit shy, in such a crowded place, to do something like that. She holds the water bottle with both hands. I then lift her arms slightly, encouraging her. Come on, follow my lead. Chu Wanning also lifts her hand, opening her small lips, letting out a wow. She squeezes for a long time, but no soda squirts out, only then realizing she hasn't applied any force. So she adds a bit more strength to her hand. The soda squirts out of the bottle, landing right in her mouth. Feeling the extreme sweetness of the soda, Chu Wanning's eyes suddenly take on an extraordinary radiance. She turns to look at me in surprise, then stops squeezing. After that, she lowers her head to examine the bottle's design. It turns out this kind of soda bottle that's sold as scrap, for just a few cents, was designed so sophisticatedly, it can probably still be reused. Yet many people just throw it away. What a waste. She lifts the bottle to her mouth with both hands again, taking 2 more sips. A contented smile is clear on her face, then screws the cap back on. Standing quietly beside me, watching me drink, the sight of me drinking also makes her feel very satisfied, because this is what she bought as a gift for me. Seeing this, I turn my head to look at her, asking, why are you drinking anymore? Chu Wanning looks at me, her mouth slightly open, wanting to say something but stopping herself. She tentatively glances at me and says nothing. I ask further, you want to save it for your father to drink? She purses her lips, shyly raising her hand to scratch her head. Taking that as her response, I take a deep breath and say, you just drink this bottle, as for your father's share. It's on me. You've treated me so many times. Can't I treat him once? Chu Wanning quickly looks up and says, no need. I just needed a taste. That's enough. I don't agree. Feeling a bit of heartache, aching to death for Chu Wanning. This silly girl never knows how to think of herself. Let's go to the store to buy soda for him. While we're at it, I want to buy something to eat too. I walk proudly with a smile. Taking Chu Wanning's warm, small hand, we walk together toward the school's general store. Luckily, the next 800-meter heat is taking place on the field. Others aren't paying any attention to the two of us walking hand in hand. For a moment, Chu Wanning also forgets to let go of my hand. She feels very amazed at the changes happening within herself. But she also feels very happy to have those changes. Walking together with Gu Xiao's in public, something that seems so simple, yet she had been waiting for it for 3 or 4 years.